Chapter 102. She's an insignificant person. Chang Zhuyu liked Feng Shui's little temper. Her attitude showed that she cared about him and liked him. She's just a secretary. Her father is one of the shareholders of the company. If you don't like her, you can transfer her out of her position and not see her again. If it was in the past, Chang Zhuyu wouldn't have cared about anyone's feelings. He would have just sent her packing. But recently, the Chang family's stock price had plummeted. They had lost a lot of money. In order to appease the shareholders, he couldn't just fire her. Chang Zhuyu led Feng Shui to the leather chair behind his desk and let her sit down. Feng Shui's eyes darkened when she heard that Chang Zhuyu only wanted to transfer her out of the company and not fire her. She sat on the chair and looked down to see the steaming hot coffee on the table. Feng Shui thought about it and knew that it was left by the woman who had provoked her just now. Chang Zhuyu saw Feng Shui's gaze on the coffee. He touched the rim of the cup politely and handed it to Feng Shui. Have some coffee. The temperature is just right. Feng Shui took it and took a sip. She put it down and pursed her lips. It's too bitter. Chang Zhuyu said dotingly, I'll make you a cup. He took the cup of coffee and poured it out. He went to the pantry and personally made Feng Shui a cup of coffee. He knew Feng Shui's favorite coffee by heart. He had practiced it thousands of times. Many people saw them along the way. They didn't dare to say anything in front of Chang Zhuyu. They only whispered to each other after Chang Zhuyu made the coffee and returned to the office. President Chang is so nice to Miss Feng, someone said with admiration. Yeah, he even made coffee for Miss Feng. President Chang dotes on her so much. Miss Feng is so lucky. Miss Feng even came to see President Chang personally. They are so loving. The group of people talked at once. Suddenly, someone said, no matter how loving they are, they're still scumbags and bitches. The voices came to an abrupt end. They looked at each other in dismay, but no one bothered to ask which warrior had said it. They didn't say anything else, but rather awkwardly dispersed. Chang Zhuyu didn't know what was going on outside the office, nor did he care. All he could think about was Feng Shui. He handed the coffee to Feng Shui. Try it. I made it for you. Feng Shui's lips curled into a smile. Brother Chang, your coffee suits my taste the best. Chang Zhuyu said proudly, of course. Shui, why are you here? What's the matter? Feng Shui's eyes sparkled as she looked at him, but her tone was cold. Can't I come to you for no reason? Of course not. I'm very happy that you came to see me. Chang Zhuyu held Feng Shui's hand affectionately. I wish that you could come every day. Feng Shui turned her head slightly, but she didn't look very happy. What's wrong? Did someone bully you? Feng Shui shook her head. Chang Zhuyu's heart ached. Shui, don't worry. I'll make sure you get justice. Of course, he knew about Shui's current predicament. Shui's manager had already mentioned it to him. In order not to let Shui suffer, he even asked her manager not to accept any resources for her during this period. Those low-quality resources were not worthy of Shui. He didn't want Shui to suffer. As for the company, there had been a lot of trouble recently, so they couldn't provide good resources at the moment. Chang Zhuyu was also held accountable by the company's shareholders. He often felt angry. When Shui had created so many benefits for the company, who didn't pamper and protect her. Now that she was in trouble, everyone wanted to get rid of her after she'd outlived her usefulness. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't have absolute authority, he would have fired all of them. However, this didn't mean that he would deal with them in the future. When the Chang family recovered, he would deal with them one by one. Feng Shui had suffered so much, but she still swallowed the bitter fruit. She had been like this since she was young. Even if she was bullied, she wouldn't say anything. She would silently endure it and even force a smile. Chang Zhuyu's heart ached. Feng Shui looked indifferent. I used to be so busy that my feet didn't even touch the ground. Now that I have time, I can spend more time with my family. She paused. Then her lips curled into a smile. I'll also spend time with you. Chang Zhuyu would naturally be happy if Feng Shui could spend more time with him. However, he didn't want to see Feng Shui unhappy. It was all because of that evil woman, Fu Yunrua. Feng Shui took 2 sips of coffee and said in distress, I wanted to stay at home to spend time with my family, but Uncle urged me to get married. I had no choice but to come out. Her voice was a little mischievous. I could only come here to hide in peace. This way, Uncle and the others won't urge me. Chang Zhuyo's eyes lit up when he heard the word urge. Shuer, you agree to get married? Feng Shui Ruo realized that she had misspoken. Her face was slightly red with embarrassment. No, Chang Zhuyu promised excitedly. Shuer, don't worry. I will give you the wedding of the century. All the women in the world will be envious of you. Feng Shui Ruo heard Chang Zhuyo's description of a beautiful future. Her fair cheeks blushed and her curly eyelashes hid the emotions in her eyes. Chang Zhuyu had wanted to marry Shui for a long time. Ever since they got engaged, he would propose to her from time to time. However, Shui seemed to be hesitant and refused to agree. Chang Zhuyu couldn't bear to force her. He would propose from time to time and wait for the day when she would agree. It wasn't easy for Shui to change her mind. Chang Zhuyu couldn't wait to set the wedding date so that he could bring the beauty home as soon as possible. However, his rationality prevented him from doing so. Now wasn't a good time. If the Chang family hadn't been in so much trouble recently, he would have held the wedding of the century soon. After this, he would wholeheartedly prepare the most unforgettable wedding for Shui. I haven't seen Uncle and Auntie in a long time. I wonder if they are doing well. As a junior, I'm sorry that I didn't visit them often. Chang Zhuyo's expression became unnatural. He continued, Father has been busy with the company recently. He went on a business trip. Mother also went on a trip to relax. He was the one who forced his mother to go on a trip to relax. Since this year, his mother had been treating Shui coldly. She felt that Shui was the reason why the Chang family was in so much trouble. No matter how unhappy Chang Zhuyu was, he couldn't change his mother's attitude. He asked her to leave the capital so that she wouldn't give Shui a hard time. After the Chang family's affairs were settled, he believed that his mother would revert to her previous attitude. However, Feng Shui noticed Chang Zhuyo's unnatural expression. A dark glint flashed across her eyes. At first, the master and madam of the Chang family praised her for bringing good luck to her husband. They were very satisfied with her and couldn't wait for her to marry into the family. However, now that her reputation was damaged, they were treating her coldly. Feng Shui pretended not to notice. She smiled and said, It's good for Annie to go on a trip to relax. Then, she asked with concern, Is the company's business difficult to solve? It's not difficult. Don't worry, Chang Zhuyu said confidently. Feng Shui believed him. All these years, the Chang family had developed rapidly under his leadership. They had completed many big projects and everyone in the Chang family was convinced that he was the future heir. She looked at him with admiration. Brother Chang, you're amazing. Chang Zhuyo's vanity instantly swelled. In front of the woman he loved, he was extremely confident. There's a charity banquet tomorrow night. Come with me. Feng Shui pondered for a moment before revealing a smile. All right. Pausing for a moment, she hesitated. Will sister and the others be going as well? At this charity gala, there would be a lot of celebrities showing their faces, right? When one is really successful now, everyone in the industry is talking about her and praising her for being a very smart child. When she grows up, she will definitely be the second CEO. Feng Shui was sincerely happy for Wenwan. Then, she said regretfully, It's a pity that I didn't get chosen as the female lead. Otherwise, I would have been able to work with Wenwan. When Chang Zhuyu heard this, he suddenly remembered something unpleasant. When he found out that Shui was auditioning for this film, he had tried to invest in her directly. However, the film crew had rejected his investment. Chang Zhuyu had done his research and found out that Siyu had invested in this Xinxia drama. There was no room for anyone else to interfere. Siyu was indeed his nemesis. When he thought of this, Chang Zhuyo's eyes flashed fiercely. Feng Shui wanted to say something but hesitated. There are some things that I don't know if I should tell you. What is there that can't be said between us? Chang Zhuyu asked gently. See you and my sister. When one is their child. Feng Shui quickly added. I think they don't want to announce it. You have to keep it a secret too. Otherwise, I will be angry. When Chang Zhuyu heard this, he felt even more uncomfortable. He disliked the child even more. Don't worry. I know what to do. He had to make good use of this information. Fu Yun and Wenwan were on set. It was very hot outside. Even if they were sitting under a parasol with a big fan blowing on them, she still felt hot. This filming was much more difficult than the last time. Last time, they had basically filmed indoors and relied on post-production special effects. This time, they had to film outdoors frequently, especially under the sun. Fu Yun's heart ached when she saw Wan Wen's flushed cheeks and sweaty face. There were a few times when she wanted to stop filming. However, when she saw how happy Wan Wen was, she couldn't bring herself to say it. She could only prepare more drinks and desserts to cool down. Fortunately, the director was very kind. He was afraid that the child's body couldn't take it, so he tried his best not to let him be under the sun and let him rest more often. Siyu also sat under a parasol and blew on the fan with them. At first, when they saw this famous actor appearing on set every day, the director and the staff were flattered. However, after seeing him a lot, they got used to it. Siyu saw that Fu Yun was staring at the filming site not far away. He, a handsome man with a strong presence, was completely ignored. He deeply felt that if he were to compete with Wen Wan for her attention, he would have no chance of winning. Siyu said to Fu Yun, "There is a charity banquet tonight. Do you want to go and take a look?" Charity banquet? Fu Yun turned her head and looked over. Siyu said, "It is started by a senior who is of virtue and prestige. Although it is inevitable that there will be some shows, there will be some really good deeds." The original owner of this body had been to a charity banquet before. However, it only existed in her memory. It was like looking at flowers in the fog. She really wanted to go and take a look. However, when she calculated her savings, she realized in despair that she did not have much savings on hand. The amount that she could take out was only about 200,000 yuan. There will be an auction at that time. You can see if there is anything you like. The proceeds from the auction will be donated. It's good to bring the child to take a look. Siyu wanted to spend some time with the two of them. However, when he saw that she kept hesitating, he gave a reason that Fu Yun would definitely not reject. Sure enough, when Fu Yun heard that she could bring Wen Wan to take a look, she was even more tempted. She nodded without hesitation. If it's okay to bring the child, then let's go. Children needed to experience more to broaden their horizons. Siyu really didn't know whether to be happy or depressed. After Wan Wen finished filming a scene, the director smiled and announced the break. Immediately, an assistant came forward to hold an umbrella for Wan Wan. Wan Wan jumped under the umbrella and ran over with her assistant. "Mom?" Fu Yun hurriedly passed the iced mung bean paste that was still cold to Wan Wan. "Quickly drink a few mouthfuls to cool down." This was the mung bean paste that the chef in the hotel had personally made. The mung bean paste was soft, sticky, and extremely sweet. Fu Yun originally wanted to make the mung bean paste herself, but the chef made it better than her, so she didn't do anything unnecessary. Wen Wen held the thermos flask and gulped down a lot of water before she stopped and burped. She felt that all the heat in her body had evaporated. "Mom, don't wait for me outside. Just wait for me at the hotel." Wen Wen's cheeks were still red. His heart ached for his mother. It was such a hot day. How cool would it be to wait in the hotel room with the air conditioning on? Staying outside, even the air was hot. Fu Yun tapped his nose. "No, I want to be with my baby." She had promised Wen Wan that she would be by his side when he was filming. She couldn't go back on her word. "All right." Sigh. His mother was just too clingy. Wen Wan looked helpless on the surface, but he was very pleased inside. "You don't have any scenes to film tonight, right?" "No," Wen Wan replied. The director basically didn't arrange any scenes for him at night. He needed to sleep more and grow taller quickly. "There's a charity gala tonight. Do you want to go?" Fu Yun asked for Wan Wen's opinion. Wen Wen's eyes lit up. "Yes." Fu Yun smiled. "Okay." Then she looked at Siyu. "I'll leave the rest to you." Siyu smiled and nodded. Wen Wen looked at Siyu. What? He actually wanted to go with Siyu? Could he go back on his word? It was impossible for him to go back on his word. Siyu communicated with the director, and after finishing Wen Wen's scenes early, he left the set with the two of them. The two of them had been outside in the sun for the entire day. Siyu arranged a skincare treatment for them and let them have a good night's sleep. Fu Yun and Wen Wen lay down comfortably. When they woke up, their faces were fresh and moist. They looked tender and didn't feel the stinging pain of being sunburned at all. It was extremely comfortable. The effect was too good. Fuyun asked Siyu where he found the skincare agency, and she noted it down so that she could look for them for skincare in the future. Then the three of them went to have dinner together. They put on the evening gowns that had been sent over and got into the car to set off. Siyu also put on a suit. More than half an hour later, the car stopped at the entrance of a luxurious hotel. Fuyun and Wenwen got out of the car. She casually looked around and saw many high-end cars coming in and out. She saw some well-dressed, successful people and rich women. After Siyu got out of the car, the valet of the hotel helped to drive the car away. The three of them walked to the entrance. Siyu handed over an invitation and was respectfully invited in. Wenwen did not look around. His back was straight, and he walked with the wind, looking very imposing. This was an auction and also a place to expand one's network. There were already many people in the hall, and everyone was dressed beautifully. Siyu and the other two good-looking people walked in and attracted a lot of attention. Many directors and celebrities who had good relations with Siyu came over to greet Siyu and the others. The senior management of Apple Entertainment was also there. Fuyun realized that it wasn't appropriate for her and would want to follow Siyu in. Wouldn't she become his female companion? Fuyun lowered her head and looked at Wenwen. She still had a family to feed. However, when Siyu introduced them, Fuyun didn't want to be separated from Siyu. She could only smile and exchange pleasantries. Yes, Siyu might want to use this opportunity to introduce her and Wenwen to her. In the future, Wenwen would need these connections to continue working in the entertainment industry. At first, Fuyun felt a little uncomfortable. Not long after, she saw many familiar people. It turned out that some big shots in the live broadcast industry were also there. A few of them were Fuyun's acquaintances. Not only that, many successful people from Meimu Charity took the initiative to greet Fuyun. Only then did Fuyun realize that many of these big shots had followed her live broadcast and were her fans. After greeting them, Fuyun and Wenwen stood together with the people in the live broadcast industry. Regardless of social status, there were different circles. Fuyun felt that she belonged to this circle. When Siyu saw this, she also followed Fuyun very freely. Although Brother Fatty and the others were part of the top group of people in the live broadcast industry, in front of Siyu, the super best actor in the entertainment industry, they were still a little inferior. At first, they were a little restrained, but soon, they were chatting and laughing with Siyu. When Fuyun saw that Siyu had integrated into her circle so easily, she couldn't help but take a few more glances. Not long after, there was a commotion at the entrance. Everyone subconsciously looked over. Chang Zhuyu and Feng Shui, who was dressed to the nines, made a grand entrance. Fuyun Ruo was stunned. She thought, how did the halo that seemed to be glowing do it? It's too eye-catching. When the others saw the two of them, they knew that Fuyun wasn't on good terms with them, so they didn't go up to greet them like the others. When Fuyun saw that the male and female leads were surrounded by the stars, she thought to herself, even if Feng Shui is banned by others, she still has the halo of the female lead. When her friends saw Fuyun looking over, they were afraid that she would be in a bad mood, so they quickly changed the topic. I heard that when Win's movie is going to be released soon. When the time comes, I will definitely bring my family to support it. Me too. I saw that the reviews online are very good. Hey, why don't you give us some spoilers? Fuyun smiled and said, that won't do. I still have to see it for myself. Only then will I feel surprised. That makes sense. I don't care about the others, but you can't spoil it for me. Another friend laughed and said, I want to see it for myself. Okay, then I won't spoil it either. While Fuyun was chatting and laughing, Chang Zhuyu and Feng Shui had already noticed Fuyun and the others. Chang Zhuyu and the others walked towards Fuyun and the others. When they were halfway there, a beautiful woman wearing a tight black dress stopped Chang Zhuyu. President Chang, why didn't you wait for me before coming? You promised my father that you would take good care of me. What nonsense are you talking about? Fuyun couldn't help but take a few more glances. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind, and she remembered some of the original plot. Later on, she only remembered that Feng Shui got married because she was pregnant. When she saw this scene, she thought that there was an episode in the original plot. It seems that there was a woman who was interested in the male lead and wanted to replace Feng Shui. Then, during a banquet, she took the opportunity to drug the male lead and wanted to take the opportunity to succeed. In the end, it was a freak combination of factors that helped the male lead and female lead be together. Could it be this party? Ruoro, what are you looking at? When Siyu saw that Fu Yun kept looking at Chang Zhuyu, his eyes darkened. He couldn't help but wonder if Ruoro had been avoiding his feelings because she still had feelings for Chang Zhuyu. Siyu looked at Chang Zhuyu and narrowed his eyes slightly. Fu Yun turned around. The auction is about to start. Shall we go in? The auction site was not in the same place as the main hall. They still had to move. Okay. Fu Yun nodded. He held Wen's hand and followed Siyu into the auction site. Fu Yun couldn't help but take a few more glances. This was the original plot. She didn't expect to see it with her own eyes one day. This made her realize that the plot was coming to an end. Wen also took a few more glances. He had heard many rumors about how the Chang couple had been in love for decades. It turned out that this young Master Chang also had other romantic encounters. Siyu had been paying attention to Fu Yun. When he saw that she was absent-minded, he secretly gritted his teeth. This stupid woman. She didn't like such an outstanding and devoted man. Instead, she liked someone who was out of line. What kind of taste did she have? Fu Yun didn't know that Siyu had misunderstood. She noticed that not long before the auction started, Chang Zhuyu and Feng Shui had just entered the venue. Feng Shui sat in her seat with a cold expression, while Chang Zhuyu humbly tried to curry favor with her. Fu Yun turned around and didn't look again. Fortunately, they were seated far away from each other. She didn't have to face them all the time. Soon, the auction started. When one was short, he tried to raise his head but couldn't see the front stage clearly. His line of sight was blocked. When Siyu saw him poking his head out, he grabbed him by the waist and placed him on his lap. When Wen's time was raised to a higher height, and he could see it clearly in an instant, he moved his little butt and adjusted himself into a comfortable position. He thought to himself that he was the one who wanted to be the cushion. He didn't ask for it. He couldn't see clearly when he sat back down. If his mother carried him, she would be very tired. Since that was the case, he could only let Siyu be tired. One by one, the collectibles were moved onto the stage. Other than the expensive calligraphy and paintings, there were very few antiques. Most of the antiques were handwritten by famous celebrities. Fu Yun looked at them. They were quite artistic. She suddenly thought that she could donate a pot of orchids to the auction. This was also a good deed. Sigh. Why didn't she think of this before? It was too late now. If there was a charity event next time, she would definitely remember. Chang Zhuyu bid for a lot of things in one go. They were all for Feng Shui. Feng Shui's expression softened. Siyu saw that Fu Yun was just looking and didn't raise her paddle. He said, "If there's anything you like, you can bid for it." Fu Yun calculated her savings and shook her head. Forget it. She would just donate some money. The next item was a crystal diamond in the shape of a flower. The exquisite and transparent diamond necklace sparkled under the lights. It was magnified by the projection and looked very beautiful. When Wen's eyes lit up when he saw it, he decided that he would bid for this crystal diamond and give it to his mother. When Wen calculated the amount of money she had and puffed out her chest confidently. Chapter 103. After the host on the stage introduced the item, the auction officially began. Wen said domineeringly, "Mom, I'll bid for this crystal diamond and give it to you." Fu Yun Ruo beamed with joy. The little guy was still so small, but he was already so sensible and filial to his mother. "I'm already very satisfied that you have such intentions. Wen, keep this money for yourself." Fu Yun Ruo said gently, "Don't you want to save it for your future capital?" Fu Yun Ruo knew Wen's ambition. He was going to be a big boss in the future, so he needed to save up his capital now. Wen said confidently, "There's no hurry. I can earn money later." His mother was the most important thing now. Moreover, he was still young. There were many opportunities to save money. When he became famous, he could earn it back immediately. Not only could he do some good deeds, but he could also give his mother a gift to make her happy. It was killing two birds with one stone. Many people were interested in this crystal diamond. After all, who didn't have a female family member? Wouldn't it be a surprise if they bought it and gave it to someone? Because this crystal diamond was pure and clear and had a large gram count, and it was personally carved by a world-famous carving master. It could be considered as one of the more expensive items in this auction. The starting bid was 500,000 yuan, and each increment must not be less than 50,000 yuan. Soon, someone bid 550,000 yuan, 600,000 yuan, 650,000 yuan. When one was ready to make a move, he raised his sign high and said, 700,000 yuan, 1,500,000 yuan. They looked over and saw that it was Chang Zhuyo's sign. He directly doubled the price. The value of this diamond was about 1,200,000 yuan. 1,500,000 yuan was already more than its value. Whether it was to give face to the Chang family, or because they felt that it was beyond their budget, everyone gave up. Only a few people were hesitating. When unconsciously puffed up his face, it was better to raise the price peacefully, but this person didn't play by the rules. When also raised the price, 2 million yuan, 3 million yuan. When one was angry, he only had less than 4 million yuan in his little treasury. He couldn't afford any more, but how could he lose to someone he hated? Moreover, he had already boasted that he would buy it and give it to his mother. 3,500,000. This had already far exceeded the value of the auction item itself. The others did not participate, and they all watched as the young master of the Chang family competed with the child. Children? When they saw the angry child sitting on Siyu's lap, they couldn't help but smile. What an adorable child. Look at his chubby little face, white and tender, and his facial features were exquisite and beautiful. The elders loved children like this the most, and their hearts softened. Then, they looked at Chang Zhuyu, who refused to give in to a child. Many people muttered in their hearts, "It's not like it's something rare or has any special meaning. What's wrong with letting a kid have a go?" Bidding with a kid seemed to be very capable, yet he actually dared to provoke him? He was too narrow-minded. When Chang Zhuyu saw the three people he disliked, he did not think of anything else. He subconsciously wanted to compete with them. Who cared if the one bidding with him was a child? Shuer had seen the shareholder's daughter pestering him several times, and it made Shuer angry. Although he was happy that Shuer cared about his performance, Shuer was also unhappy about it. They were currently in a cold war. In order to make her happy, Chang Zhuyu had already bid for many items at a high price tonight. Now, this was the item he wanted to buy the most, because he would not let Fu Yun get what she wanted. This crystal diamond was most suitable for his Shuer. Therefore, Chang Zhuyu did not care if the person bidding was a child. He would only think that it was Fu Yun who ordered him to do so. 5 million. He gave Fu Yun Ruo a provocative look. Feng Shui could not help but frown. "Brother Chang, since sister likes it, why don't you give it to her?" Chang Zhuyu said helplessly, "You are too aloof and too weak. You will be bullied." How could he watch Shuer be bullied? This jewelry belonged to Shuer. He was so angry that he wanted to cry. He did not have that much money, so he could not bid for it as a gift for his mother. Fu Yun comforted him. "The price is too high. It's not worth it. We don't want it. Baby will buy a better one for mommy next time." Fu Yun was also very unhappy. She did not know what this male lead was thinking, but he was still looking at her with such a hateful gaze. When pursed his lips and did not say anything. After being pampered and coaxed by everyone around him for 4 to 5 years, he felt that the sky was falling when he was wronged. He was very upset. When his mother comforted him, he wanted to lean into her arms and act coquettishly. When reached out to Fu Yun, he looked at her with watery eyes and asked for a hug. Fu Yun turned sideways and carried Wen over. Siyu cooperated and sent Wen over. Then, before the auctioneer finalized the deal, he raised the bidding sign. 6 million. Fu Yun and Wen turned their heads at the same time. When Chang Zhuyu saw Siyu, he thought of what Shuer said. That little brat was their son. Calculating the time, they had not officially annulled their engagement at that time. His eyes turned red. No matter how much he hated Fu Yun Ruo, no man would be able to tolerate a woman who was labeled as his to have a relationship with another man. No man could accept being cuckolded. Every time he thought of this, his face turned green. He raised the bidding sign. 7 million. Siyu raised the bidding sign. 8 million. Chang Zhuyu immediately followed. 9 million. Siyu raised the bidding sign hesitantly. 1,000, 1,100, 1,300, 1,500. Fu Yun was stunned. The two of them seemed to be competing with each other. They were chasing after each other and did not give anyone a chance to react. She had just comforted Wan when the price had soared to 10 million and was still rising. The auctioneer was so excited that his face turned red. 15 million. 15 million. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? 15 million going once. When Fu Yun saw that Siyu was about to raise the bidding sign again, she hurriedly shouted, Siyu, even if he was rich, he should not be spending his money like this. Siyu turned to look at Fu Yun. He blinked and smiled at her. Then, he put down the bidding sign. 15 million going twice. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? Siyu turned to look at Chang Zhuyu with a faint smile on his face. He even gestured for Chang Zhuyu to continue. 15 million going thrice. Deal. The gavel was slammed, and the deal was sealed. Before Chang Zhuyu could taste the taste of victory, the auction house was already in an uproar. Although this auction had a charitable nature, everyone knew in their hearts that generally, the auction price would be 20% or 30% higher than the market price, unless there were two or more parties that wanted the item. Only then would they bid for it at a high price. Although this piece of jewelry was exquisite, it was not rare. With 15 million, one could customize a set of top-grade jewelry that was more expensive and better than this piece of jewelry. To bid for it at a price that was more than 10 times the original price, this person from the Chang family must have gone crazy. Siyu was the first to applaud him, celebrating that he had won the bid for the item that he wanted. Everyone else reacted and congratulated him regardless of what they were thinking. Fu Yun looked at Siyu, who was smiling sincerely. She quickly realized that he had bid for Chang Zhuyu on purpose, just now to make him spend a lot of money. She could not help but laugh and secretly gave Siyu a thumbs up. Compared to buying the item at a high price, it was better to let the other party spend a lot of money. Siyu was really too evil, but she liked it. Chang Zhuyu's mind went blank. When he realized how much money he had spent, his face instantly turned ugly. Previously, he had bid for many small items at a high price. In total, he had spent 7 to 8 million. Including this, he had more than 20 million in cash. In the past, he would not have cared about 20 million at all. However, because of the company's problems recently, they had to pay a lot of money to fill the hole. Chang Zhuyu could not take out so much cash at once. If he wanted to liquidate his other assets, it would be too late. Chang Zhuyu called his assistant and asked him to transfer 20 million from the company's account to his account first. He only had about 10 million in his account, so it was not enough to cover the expenses this time. His assistant was a little hesitant. President Chang, our funds are a little tight. Do what I tell you to do. Cut the crap. Chang Zhuyu said coldly and hung up the phone. Chang Zhuyu's face turned extremely ugly. He felt that everyone was whispering and pointing at him. He instantly tightened his grip on his phone. I heard that the Chang family's company is in trouble. It seems that the rumors are true. It should be a small problem. Otherwise, they would not have casually taken out 20 million. Although the assets of aristocratic families were in the hundreds of billions, most of it was in various assets, shares, and other things. Capital only accounted for a part of it. Everyone had seen the Chang family's recent troubles and guessed that they had put in a lot of money. However, even if they were short on funds, they were still a big company. No one dared to reveal anything easily. Now that the Chang family could casually spend 10 million on an item, it meant that their financial situation was not as bad as they had imagined. Feng Shui could not care less about the Cold War. Seeing Chang Zhuyu's strange expression, he asked with concern, "What's wrong?" After a pause, she said, "I don't really like these things. There's no need to waste so much money. Don't do this again." When Chang Zhuyu heard Feng Shui's words, his expression softened instantly. He said gently, "What's given to you is never wasted." The auction continued, but it was coming to an end soon. Siyu had her eyes on an inkstone from the Ming and Qing dynasties. It was the most valuable item in tonight's auction. It had been donated by an antique collector for charity, but it had only been sold for 5 million yuan. This time, Chang Zhuyu did not dare to raise his paddle casually. He was worried that Siyu would cheat him again. Tonight's spending had exceeded his expectations. If it had been in the past, he would not have had to worry about money. However, he was personally in charge of the company and knew the company's current predicament. The Chang family could not bring themselves to sell off their assets. Basically, they had used all their liquid funds to fill the hole. Recently, they had been struggling to make ends meet. When he saw that Siyu had won the auction, his expression darkened even more. Siyu was indeed his nemesis. Siyu had her eyes on the inkstone. She had bought it for 1 won. After a year or two, her wrist would become stronger, and she would be able to practice calligraphy. Yes, she could play with it first. There were better ones at home. When one sat in Fu Yunruo's arms, he was comforted by his mother and saw that Siyu had stood up for him. He was in a good mood. He looked at Chang Zhuyu with a smug smile. Soon, the auction came to an end. As the last item was sold, the host of the auction gave a closing speech. The item with the highest price was naturally the crystal diamond that Chang Zhuyu had won. The host of the banquet expressed his gratitude. Finally, everyone left. Siyu carried 1 won, who was still in Fu Yunruo's arms. She even mocked her. "Little fat pig, don't you know how heavy you are? Wouldn't it be tiring for her mother to carry her for so long?" Wenwen felt offended. She immediately frowned. "You are the fat pig, big fat pig." Wenwen pressed down hard. Since he dared to call her fat, she would crush him. Siyu raised her eyebrows. "If I am the big fat pig, then you are the little fat pig. You are the big fat pig, I am not." The two of them were quarreling childishly. Fu Yunruo could not bear to watch. Were they both 3-year-old? Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shuiruo walked towards them. They were obviously waiting for them at the exit. Fu Yunruo. Siyu stepped to the side and stood in front of Fu Yunruo. He confronted Chang Zhuyu. "Mr. Chang, please watch your distance." "Siyu." Chang Zhuyu gritted his teeth. He clenched his fists and resisted the urge to punch him. "Oh, I almost forgot. I haven't congratulated you on winning the bid. Mr. Chang, you are really a philanthropist. You donated so much money to help more people," Siyu said sincerely. Chang Zhuyu snorted. "I can't compare to you. How much did you donate?" "Not much. I only donated 30 million yuan. Chang Zhuyu was speechless. "If you don't believe me, you can confirm it with Mr. Mu," Siyu added with a smile. Chang Zhuyu stared at Siyu so hard that his eyes were about to pop out. His eyes were bloodshot. Fang Shuiruo looked at Fu Yunruo with a gentle expression. "Sister, when are you going to bring Wenwen home to visit Uncle?" "Uncle, he misses you very much." Fu Yunruo could not be bothered to talk to her. She pretended not to hear her and ignored her. Fang Shuiruo's eyes darkened. She forced a smile and said, "Brother Chang was just joking with you. Sister, if you like the crystal diamond, you can have it." "We don't need it," Siyu said gently and politely. "If there is nothing else, please move aside. You are blocking our way." "Siyu, I will not let you off." Chang Zhuyu growled. Siyu did not take it to heart. He had heard this at least 3 times. In front of him, Chang Zhuyu could only talk back. Siyu gestured for Fu Yunruo to leave from the other side first. He then followed her and left together. "Sister?" Fang Shuiruo was about to stop them. "President Chang." A coquettish voice suddenly sounded from not far away. Fu Yunruo turned around and saw the seductive woman again. She walked over in her high heels. Before she could take a second look, Siyu put a hand on her shoulder and urged her, "Let's go." They quickly got into the car. Fu Yunruo could not help but look at Siyu. Why did she feel that he did not want her to interact with Chang Zhuyu and the others? Actually, she was curious about how the original plot would develop. She had been here for so many years, but this was the first time she had encountered the original plot. Siyu did not say anything and asked the driver to send them back. It was almost 11 o'clock. It was past Wen's usual bedtime. Wenruo fell asleep as soon as he got into the car. "Mom." Wenruo's eyelids could not open. He called out softly, sounding a little disappointed. He had promised to give his mother a gift, but he had not kept his word. Fu Yunruo patted Wenruo's body rhythmically. "Mom is here, baby. Mom loves Wenwen the most. I love you too." Wenruo's voice had just finished when his mother patted him rhythmically. His consciousness slowly became blurry, and he fell asleep. Fu Yunruo patted him for a while. She only pulled her hand away when he fell asleep. Did you really donate 30 million yuan? Fu Yunruo asked curiously. Siyu nodded. Mr. Mu is a real philanthropist. We often work together. His family had a foundation dedicated to charity. Fu Yunruo sighed. She felt that the money she had donated was not even a fraction of what the other party had donated. However, charity should be done within one's means. No matter how much one donated, the intention was the same. Siyu Ruo and Fu Yunruo did not speak anymore. It was very quiet in the car, and only soothing music could be heard. The car arrived at the hotel garage. Siyu Ruo got out of the car and gently carried her into the elevator. Fu Yunruo paid attention to Wenwen all the way. He was lying on Siyu's shoulder, with one side of his face pressed down. His small mouth was slightly open, and he was sleeping soundly. Fu Yunruo's heart swelled just by looking at Wenwen. When they reached the door, Fu Yunruo found the room card and opened the door. She then inserted the room card and the soft light turned on. Siyu carried Wenwen into the room and carefully placed him on the bed. Fu Yunruo turned on the air conditioner, then went into the bathroom to get a basin of warm water and took out a small towel. She whispered, "He has been outside for a whole day in such hot weather. He is sweating all over. Wipe him and make him feel more comfortable." The little guy was sleeping soundly. It would be too noisy to bathe him and wake him up. It would be better to wipe him with a wet towel. Siyu Ruo also lowered his voice. "Let me do it." Fu Yunruo glanced at him and did not refuse. She handed the small towel to him. Siyu wrung the wet towel. Fu Yunruo saw that he was wringing it so dry. She hurriedly said, "You don't have to wring it so hard. If it is too dry, it will be uncomfortable if you can't wipe it." Siyu wet it again and wrung it gently. This time, it was still wet. Finally, under Fu Yunruo's instructions, he wrung out a suitable dry and wet towel. Fu Yunruo had already gently removed Wenwen's small suit, revealing his fair and soft little body. It was obvious that it was Siyu's first time doing such a thing. He was a little clumsy. He had already carefully wiped Wenwen's back and hands, but it was obvious that Wenwen was still uncomfortable. He furrowed his little eyebrows and looked very unhappy. Siyu moved even more gently. Not long after, Wenwen's little eyebrows relaxed. Fu Yunruo tilted her head and looked at Siyu's focused expression. She suddenly felt that it was actually quite good for Wenwen to have a father. After Siyu wiped Wenwen's entire body, he practiced changing him into pajamas. As he was afraid of waking the child up, his whole body was tense and his movements were very careful. After taking care of the child, Siyu's back was already drenched in sweat. Fu Yunruo went forward and covered Wenwen with a blanket. "Let's go out." Siyu carried the basin out and poured the water. After leaving the room, Fu Yunruo heaved a sigh of relief and her tone returned to normal. She looked at Siyu and said, "Thank you for your hard work today." Siyu shook his head. He looked at Fu Yunruo and said sincerely, "Thank you for your hard work." Fu Yunruo was confused. She did not understand what Siyu meant at that moment. Siyu did not say anything else. He felt that it was very difficult for Fu Yunruo to take care of the child alone. He had only personally helped her a little, but he deeply felt that it was not easy to take care of a child. Then, when the child was younger, wouldn't it be even more difficult and tiring? Siyu was both grateful and heartbroken. He regretted that he did not check on her situation. If he had found out earlier, he could have helped take care of the child earlier. But on the other hand, he felt that it was not too late to appear now. It was still not too late. From now on, he could help more and take care of the child together. Fu Yunruo looked up and saw that Siyu had no intention of leaving. A few words suddenly flashed across her mind. A man and a woman alone in a room in the middle of the night. She suddenly felt that the atmosphere was strange. Fu Yunruo felt a little uncomfortable and said tactfully, "It's very late. Okay, I'll stay for a while." Siyu lowered his head and looked at Fu Yunruo. His thoughts turned and he thought of his previous guess. His expression gradually became serious. What's wrong?" Fu Yunruo saw the situation and started to feel nervous. "You still have feelings for that man surnamed Cheng?" "Huh." Siyu frowned and said, "In the past, it was fine if you had poor taste. That was because you didn't have enough outstanding men by your side. Now, you have a man surnamed Chang by your side who is better than him in all aspects. You should focus on your side. Siyu was just short of directly saying, "Look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm the one who deserves to be liked the most." No. Did you misunderstand something? Fu Yunruo reacted and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Since when did I have feelings for him? God, where did this misunderstanding come from? Had she ever expressed her feelings for that man surnamed Chang? Siyu said unhappily, "You peeked at him 9 times tonight. If not for the fact that she still had feelings for him in her heart, why would she peek at him so many times?" Fu Yunruo, did I? 9 times so many? This is really a misunderstanding. She was just curious about the plot. No. How did Siyu count it so clearly? Could it be that he had been paying attention to her the entire night? Ruo, I can't accept that you don't want to talk about feelings now. I have a lifetime to wait. Siyu looked at Fu Yunruo with a focused and gentle gaze. But if you have such thoughts one day, you can only choose me. Siyu's words were a little domineering. Fu Yunruo avoided his gaze and muttered in her heart, "How is this a multiple-choice question? It's too domineering." Fu Yunruo avoided this topic. "It's very late. I want to rest." Siyu did not want to push Fu Yunruo too hard. He originally thought that he could take it slow, but now, when she looked at another man, he was extremely concerned. He was a little impatient. How could he stand by Fu Yunruo's side in a justifiable manner? Siyu was thinking about how to declare his ownership. Ruo, remember this. No one can force me to do anything. It's only up to me whether I'm willing or not. Then, Siyu changed the topic. Of course, now, someone can force me. I will listen to her. Fu Yunruo's heart was flustered when she heard this. She hurriedly said again, "I'm tired and want to rest. Good night." Then, she quickly rushed into the bathroom and locked the door. Siyu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He walked over and knocked on the door. There was no movement inside. Siyu smiled and said, "Good night." Then, he turned around and left. Fu Yunruo heaved a sigh of relief when she heard the door open and close in the bathroom. She touched her rapidly beating heart and looked at herself in the mirror. Her cheeks were red. Fu Yunruo could not help but touch her face. It was boiling hot. How could she not know what Siyu meant? He said that no one could make him compromise. He confessed to her that he wanted to be with her because he liked her, not because of the child. The meaning behind his words was that he would listen to the person he liked and do whatever she asked him to do. Fu Yunruo did not know what she wanted. Her plan had been forcefully interrupted by Siyu, and she was at a crossroads in her life. Originally, she had already planned to raise Wenwen wholeheartedly and not get married again. She felt that being alone was quite carefree. Now, she had the ability to earn money and live a good life. In the future, she could let go of her child and let him fly away to explore the world. She could travel all over the world, taste all the delicacies in the world, and enjoy all the beautiful scenery in the world. This kind of life would be very happy. In the future, when she was old and her child had a family and career, she could return to the village, rent a piece of land, and continue to raise flowers. But now, a handsome man with a good figure and a good personality wanted to be with her. Most importantly, he was the child's father. Fu Yunruo was shamefully moved, but she was also a little conflicted. She did not know what she was hesitating about. Perhaps she did not dare to take this step easily. Forget it. It was better not to think too much. Looking at Wenwen's attitude, it was still awkward. She would think about it again when the child had completely accepted it. Speaking of which, what exactly was Wenwen feeling awkward about? Fu Yunruo's thoughts instantly jumped to Wenwen. She actually did not find out anything until now. Wenwen, this little guy, really hit it well. The next day, Fu Yunruo, who was not in good spirits, was woken up by the energetic Wenwen. Her thoughts were in a mess last night. She tossed and turned until very late at night. At this moment, she still could not open her eyes. "Mom, get up." I'm up. Fu Yunruo looked at the time. It was only 6 o'clock. It was still very early. Seeing that Wenwen Ruo was full of energy, she could not help but carry him to the bed. Sleep with Mom for a while more? Wenwen rolled around happily. Kaka smiled. Seeing that Fu Yunruo was indeed very sleepy, he said considerately, "Okay." Then, he was quietly hugged. Wenwen Ruo's big eyes rolled around. At a glance, he could tell that his mother had slept very late. He fell asleep early and did not know what happened after that. He was quite curious as to why he slept so late. Fu Yunruo did not sleep for long. After a short nap, she got up. After washing up, she walked out and saw Wenwen Ruo playing with the inkstone. Wenwen Ruo raised it for Fu Yunruo to see. "Mom, isn't this the thing that Uncle you bought last night?" It was black and looked very simple. There was an inexplicable strange fragrance. Fu Yunruo looked at it. It was indeed. Maybe he forgot to take it away. She did not notice when it was placed on the table last night. Wenwen Ruo's eyes rolled. "Was Uncle you in the room last night?" "Fu Yunruo, why did he say it so ambiguously?" "He carried you up and even wiped your body." Fu Yunruo thought to herself. She did not have that much strength to carry the child up so easily. Chapter 104. When Wenwen heard this, his eyes fluttered. He thought about how Siyu had taken care of him after he changed into his pajamas. He felt a little conflicted and shy. All right, since he had taken care of him, he would not be calculative about the fact that they had been together behind his back. Wenwen rubbed his stomach and said in a childish voice, "Mommy, I'm hungry." Hence, Fu Yunruo asked the hotel staff to send breakfast up. There were also non-professionals staying in the hotel. In order to avoid trouble, they asked for breakfast to be sent to their rooms. The two of them finished their breakfast and stayed in the room. When scenes were scheduled in the afternoon, they had nothing to do in the morning, so they were too lazy to go out for half a day. It was too hot outside, so it was more comfortable to stay under the air conditioner. Wenwen leaned on Fu Yunruo and acted coquettishly. "Mommy, let me play with my phone." Fu Yunruo was cold and heartless. "No, children can't play with their phones. It'll hurt their eyes." "I'm not a child. I'm a big friend, Mommy. Let's play for a while." Ever since Yuan Xian had set up a social media account for Wenwen, he was no longer the one who looked down on electronic products. He could not help but want to see how many more fans he had. He wanted to see their comments. It would be best if he could interact with them. However, his mother kept a close eye on him and did not let him come into contact with too many electronic products. He was itching every day, but he did not dare to secretly buy a phone himself. He could only act coquettishly with Fu Yunruo so that she could let him play with her phone. Furthermore, there was something he was curious about now. He wanted to know the netizens' attitude towards his first movie. He really wanted to see it. Do you recognize all the words? Do you understand the meaning? He had to look at the comments. Could he understand it? When Wen's eyes turned. "It's precisely because I don't understand it that I have to look at it. If there are words that I don't understand, I can look it up in the dictionary or Baidu to learn it." Fu Yunruo. What he said seemed to make sense. When Wen blinked, Fu Yun could not help but poke his forehead. Nonsense. However, she still gave him the phone. "You can only play for 30 minutes. You can't put your head so close to the phone." Wenwen was happy to see Fu Yun relenting, but when she heard that it was only 30 minutes, she bargained. 1 hour, 30 minutes is too short. Fu Yun glanced at him. 20 minutes. Wenwen. How can you bargain like this? He hurriedly said, 30 minutes it is. He would go and act coquettishly after checking the time. There was a knock on the door. Fu Yun looked through the peephole and saw Siyu standing at the door. Fu Yunruo's mind replayed Siyu's words from last night. Her heartbeat quickened uncontrollably. She took 2 deep breaths to calm herself down before opening the door. "Morning," Siyu said with a smile. He was wearing a set of sportswear today, and he looked much younger and more energetic. "Morning." Fu Yunruo stepped aside to let Siyu in. "What are you doing?" "Nothing much." Siyu walked in and saw Wenwen sitting on the chair, holding the phone with both hands. His head was slightly lowered as he focused on the screen. His short hands were tapping on the screen from time to time. Wenwen looked up at the person who came in and greeted, "Uncle Yu." Then he lowered his head and continued to play with his phone. Siyu looked at Fu Yunruo. Fu Yunrua explained. He pestered me early in the morning to play with my phone. I only gave him 30 minutes, nothing more. Right. Fu Yunrua picked up the inkstone that Wenwan had placed on the table and handed it to Siyu. You forgot to take it with you last night. Siyu did not take it and said very naturally, I bought this for Wenwan. He will be learning calligraphy later, so he can use this inkstone to practice. Fu Yunrua. But he had not even started learning, but he was already preparing for it. Fu Yunrua realized that she did not seem to care enough about Wenwan. She also realized that the two of them had different attitudes towards Wenwan. If Fu Yunrua was inclined to let Wenwan have a relaxed and happy childhood, these interests and specialties could be taken slowly. However, from Siyu Rua, she could see that he had high hopes for his son. In the beginning, he might have been hiding it, but after seeing Fu Yunrua and Wenwan Rua's attitude soften, he pushed his luck and moved forward step by step. Ever since Fu Yunrua did not reject Siyu the first time, she realized that she could no longer reject Siyu. However, she still had to say, if Wenwan has too many classes and can't manage, you can start learning 2 years later. With so many classes arranged for him, Wenwan did not have time to play. Siyu Rua agreed. I'll do as I see fit. Learning was naturally based on one's talent, intelligence, and personality. The children of the Si family were not stupid. In Siyu Rua's opinion, Wenwan was already very relaxed now. Thinking back, he started learning when he was 3 years old. Every day's classes were packed, and there was a limit to the amount of time a child could play. Wenwan Rua was focused on playing with his phone. He did not know that his parents had already discussed his class arrangements for the next few years. He was overjoyed when he saw that his number of fans was still increasing. Ever since the first post was published according to his wishes, Uncle Yuan used his account to send out a few messages. One of them was to forward the trailer of the upcoming sci-fi film. The netizens had sharp eyes and quickly realized that Wenwan Rua was not the one operating the account. They were not surprised because the child was still young and probably did not even know how to read. How would he know how to manage an account? At first, they thought that it was Wenwan's mother, who was also Fu Yunrua, who was managing the account. However, they quickly found out that it was Yuan Xian's team. Alright, their little idol could only take over the account when he was 18 years old. It was okay, they would wait for him to grow up. Ever since the production team highlighted that he was in the film and praised him by the film critics, his number of fans increased slightly. At this point, he already had more than 20 million fans. Wenwan Rua looked at the comments happily. He then went to the hot comments and looked at the paragraphs that praised him. He was even happier. Fu Yunrua and Siyu were talking and did not notice the time. When she noticed, 35 minutes had already passed. Fu Yunrua went over to remind Wenwan. Time's up. You can't look at it anymore. Rest your eyes. She reached out and asked Wenwan Rua to hand over the phone. Wenwan Rua held onto the phone and did not let go. He was still reluctant to part with the phone. Can you let me look at it for another 30 minutes? Mom, it was over so quickly. He had not finished looking at it yet. Wasn't time passing too quickly? Wenwan. Fu Yunrua dragged out her voice. She had a heart of stone. Wenwan Rua had no choice but to return the phone to Fu Yunrua. Humph, he was fuming. Fu Yunrua did not care about his little temper. Since they had agreed on 30 minutes, then 30 minutes meant 30 minutes. There was even an extra 5 minutes just now. Siyu saw that Wenwan Rua was unhappy and said, Wenwan, do you want to go out with me? From Siyu's point of view, children played games because they had nothing to do. When there were so many things to do, how could they have time to think about the phone? There was still too little homework. However, now that they were in the hotel, Siyu thought about how hard it was for him to film, so she gave up the idea of calling the teacher over to teach him. Wenwan Rua blinked his eyes and did not say anything. Go out for what? He was not going out with Siyu. Wouldn't he lose face? Siyu bent down and whispered in Wenwan's ear. Wenwan Rua, who did not care at first, immediately pricked up his ears when he heard Siyu's words. Fu Yunrua looked over and was curious. What were these two people talking about so mysteriously? After Siyu Rua finished speaking, he smiled and asked, How about it? Do you want to go out with me? At this moment, Wenwan Rua did not hesitate and said, Yes. He jumped off the chair and said impatiently, Let's go out. He rushed into the suite and ran out in a short while. He stood beside Siyu and said, "Let's go." Fu Yunrua asked, "Do you want me to go with you?" When Rua rejected without hesitation. "No, I'll go out with Uncle Yu." "Mom, you stay in the hotel. We'll be back soon." Fu Yunrua was speechless. She looked at Siyu. Siyu Rua smiled and did not say anything. She could only remind him, "Be careful. Don't be recognized. Don't worry. We'll definitely disguise ourselves before going out." Siyu brought Rua out of the room. Fu Yunrua saw them go to Siyu's room opposite and then closed the door. Fu Yunrua did not follow them. She was puzzled. It was really strange. What were these two up to? She closed the door and decided not to care about the two of them. Anyway, Siyu would not betray Wenwen. Without the child by her side, Fu Yunrua felt much more relaxed. She propped up the pillow and leaned against it to look at her phone. As she had met many colleagues at the charity banquet last night, the group was talking about this matter today. Fu Yunrua quickly joined the conversation. She chatted for a while and went to the forum to look at the gossip. She focused on Wenwen's messages. Brother Yuan's team was very trustworthy. At least, there were no bad comments under Wenwen's account. This way, she did not have to worry about Wenwen's mood being affected. The child was still very young. She did not have to see other people's evil intentions so early. Fu Yunrua scrolled through the two major communication platforms and looked at the hot topics. She chatted with her friends from time to time. When she heard the movement at the door, Fu Yunrua realized that time had passed very quickly. "Mom, open the door quickly." Even through the thick door, she could hear Wenwen's cheerful little voice. Fu Yunrua went to open the door. When Wenrua walked in happily, her little face flushed with excitement. Fu Yunrua's face unconsciously had a smile on it. "Mom, Mom." When Wenrua called out happily, Fu Yunrua responded. Siyu also walked in and said to Wenrua, "Go and wash up first." After going out, her entire body was sticky and she had put on some makeup. Fu Yunrua took the initiative to tell Siyu Rua, "There's makeup remover in the bathroom." Siyu Rua responded and brought Wenrua, who could not stop, into the bathroom. Fu Yunrua did not go in. However, she was not in the mood to look at her phone at the moment. She looked around from time to time. She was really curious and did not know what the two of them were doing outside. Not long after, when Wenrua ran out first, her little face was flushed red. She ran to Fu Yunrua happily and stood in front of her. She raised her little head and put her little chubby hands behind her back. "Mom, guess what I brought you?" When Wenrua looked at her with sparkling eyes full of anticipation, Fu Yunrua saw that he was so happy. She thought about it and remembered that when Wenrua had wanted to buy her an accessory last night but did not succeed. He was unhappy for a long time. She instantly guessed that when Wenrua did not allow her to follow Siyu on this trip, he must have bought her a gift. However, she could not show that she had guessed it immediately. Fu Yunrua pretended to think for a moment and then said in distress, "What should I do? Mom can't guess." When Wenrua's eyes became brighter, "Guess again. I'll give you a hint. It's very exquisite and beautiful." Fu Yunrua pondered for a moment. "Aya, it's really too difficult for Mom. I really can't guess." When Wenrua was helpless. All right, his mother was really too stupid. He excitedly stretched his hand forward. "Look." When Wenrua's fair and chubby hand was holding an exquisite box the size of his palm. Fu Yunrua said happily, "Is this for me?" When Wenrua nodded and looked at Fu Yunrua expectantly. "Quickly open it and take a look." Fu Yunrua opened the small box and an exquisite diamond necklace came into view. She exclaimed in surprise, "It's so beautiful." In the thin platinum necklace, there was a four-leaf clover-shaped bluish-purple diamond hanging in the middle. It was emitting a mysterious glow and was elegant and charming. Seeing Fu Yunrua's extremely surprised expression, when Wenrua's small chest puffed up even higher and he squinted happily. Fu Yunrua was really surprised. She felt that this necklace was much better than the one at the auction. "I chose it myself. I like it very much." "Thank you, baby." Fu Yunrua was so touched that she wanted to cry. Her baby was really too good. She could not help but hug Wenwen Ruo and kiss his chubby cheeks a few times. I like it very much. Wenwen Ruo was kissed, and he held his face shyly. Aya, his mother was too clingy. What could he do? He could only pamper her. Wenwen Ruo's eyes were bright and resplendent. Since his mother liked it so much, it was not in vain for him to put aside his awkwardness and go out with Siyu. Wenwen Ruo, can you help Mom put it on? Okay. Fuyun Ruo did not wear a necklace around her neck, so she just put it on. Wenwen Ruo picked up the necklace and tiptoed to help Fuyun Ruo put it on. Fuyun Ruo was very cooperative as she lowered her body and head. No matter how nimble Wenwen Ruo's little chubby hands were, it took him a lot of time to press such a small hole. However, not long after, Wenwen put it on for her. Fuyun Ruo touched the necklace and kissed Wenwen Ruo's cheeks again. Her heart was full and she was extremely touched. Raising this son of hers was the right decision. Baby, Mommy loves you so much. Wenwen Ruo was so shy that he blushed. He wanted to be more reserved, but he could not hide the big smile on his face. I love Mommy too. Siyu Ruo walked out and saw the mother and son sticking together. When Fuyun Ruo saw Siyu, she could not help but show off. Look, this is a gift from Wenwen. Siyu Ruo looked at Fuyun Ruo's blissful smile, and the corners of his lips curled up. Actually, this was not just a gift from Wenwen. This was a piece of jewelry that he had asked someone to send over overnight. The most expensive piece of jewelry was a rare natural violet diamond. He had only borrowed Wenwen's hand to buy it, and then gave it to Fuyun Ruo. It could be said that the two of them had given it together. When Fuyun Ruo met Siyu's smiling and doting eyes, she inexplicably blushed. She felt that she had shown off to the wrong person. Siyu was the one who had accompanied Wenwen to buy the jewelry. He already knew about it. However, Fuyun Ruo really wanted to share her joy with someone. This opportunity came very quickly. In the afternoon, they went to the set. Fuyun Ruo changed her low-key personality and walked around the set where there were many people. She was wearing a light-colored dress today, revealing her exquisite collarbone. Naturally, one could also see the additional jewelry on her neck. The makeup artist's assistant was the first to notice it. She asked in surprise, Miss Fu, you bought a necklace? It's really beautiful. Fuyun Ruo's skin was fair. Coupled with this necklace, they complemented each other and inexplicably made her even more attractive. Fuyun Ruo immediately said happily, Really? I didn't buy it. Wenwen gave it to me as a gift. Wow. When the surrounding people heard this, they immediately gathered around and looked at it curiously. Wenwen is still so young, but she already knows how to be filial to her mother. She's so sensible. The makeup artist's assistant was very envious. Her son was about the same age, but he was pampered by his grandparents like a little tyrant. Not to mention being considerate to his parents. If he did not do as he pleased, he would turn the world upside down. Other people's children were really enviable. Every time the assistant wanted to educate the child, she would be stopped by her in-laws. This time, she was determined to change the child's personality. Otherwise, it would be difficult in the future. It's so beautiful. Wenwen is so awesome. Fuyun Ruo was extremely happy to be praised. She also thought so in her heart, but she said modestly, the little fellow is still very mischievous sometimes. Soon, everyone in the set knew that Wenwen had given her mother a very exquisite and beautiful necklace. She was a very filial child. Fuyun Ruo's vanity was greatly satisfied, and then she decided to return the gift to Wenwen. She also loved the child very much. But what should she give the child? The child was still young, and it was not convenient to give a necklace and other jewelry. Fuyun Ruo thought about it and decided to cook a big meal for the child. She had not cooked a big meal for Wenwen for a long time. Coincidentally, Wenwen had been working hard from filming, so she wanted to nourish her. Hence, after Fuyun Ruo confirmed with Siyu that he would keep an eye on Wenwen, she left the set first and returned to the hotel to borrow the kitchen to borrow some ingredients. Originally, Fuyun Ruo thought that she would need to spend some time to discuss before she could borrow the ingredients, but she did not expect the hotel to agree so easily. When Fuyun Ruo was busy in the kitchen, not only did the chef help to prepare the ingredients, but the head chef also came over to take a look and give her pointers. Fu Yunruo thought to herself that this was indeed a five-star hotel. The service was so good and considerate. Fu Yunruo also booked a private room in the hotel and told Siyu that they would go to the private room when they returned. In the evening, when they returned from filming, Wenwen followed Siyu into the private room. He sniffed and smelled a familiar fragrance. He immediately said happily, "Mom made it." Wenwen ran over happily and climbed up the chair quickly. He looked at the dishes on the table that were still covered with lids to keep them warm. He reached out and lifted the lid. The rich fragrance wafted over. It was the familiar sweet and sour pork ribs. Wow! Wenwen Ruo was overjoyed. He quickly turned the glass turntable. He wanted to see what was on the other plates. Siyu had a helpless smile on his face. Fu Yun Ruo quickly came in with two waiters behind her. They brought in a pot of rice and a bowl of soup. She was also holding a dish in her hands. Chapter 105. Mom. When Wenwen saw Fu Yun, he jumped off the chair happily and ran to Fu Yun's side. Fu Yun hurriedly lowered her head to look at him, taking care not to bump into him. Wenwen was like a little tail, following Fu Yun eagerly. She could feel Wenwen's liveliness and joy just by taking a few steps. Fu Yun placed the plate on the table, bent over and carried Wenwen to the seat, then sat on the other side. The waiter opened the lids one by one, then took them away and left the private room. Wenwen swung his short legs and looked up at Fu Yun. "Mom, these are all my favorite meat." "Thank you, Mom." "You're welcome. Baby, it's been hard on you," Fu Yun said with a smile. Siyu served the dishes at the side, then pretended to be casual. "These are my favorite too." Wenwen immediately turned his head and snorted. "Mom made them for me." Fu Yun was a little embarrassed. When they lived together in the countryside, Siyu did not have any dietary restrictions. He also liked meat, so she did not ask him what he liked. However, seeing Wenwen's proud look, Fu Yun went along with his wishes. "Yes, they are all for Wenwen." Wenwen was pleased. Siyu smiled at Wenwen very kindly. Wenwen was instantly alert. What was he trying to do? Wenwen enjoyed the treatment of a 1-year-old baby today. Fu Yun paid attention to him the entire time and fed him. When the corners of his mouth were stained with oil, his mother would even wipe it with a tissue. Good Star Lake. Fu Yun focused all his attention on Wenwen and ignored Siyu's existence, but Siyu did not mind. Fu Yun took care of Wenwen while he took care of Fu Yun. He scooped soup for her and gave her food from time to time so that she would not only care about the child. Wenwen saw this and did not want to be outdone. He tried his best to reach out his short hands to give Fu Yun some food. "Mom, eat too." Okay. Mom will eat too." Fu Yun saw that Siyu was being neglected and felt a little embarrassed, so she also greeted him. There were only 3 people, but it was very lively. In the end, the 3 of them finished all the food on the table, and all of them ate until their stomachs were round. The 2 adults still cared about their image, but they had a lazy expression. Wenwen rubbed her stomach like a kitten. She was so happy. They rested for a while before returning to their room. Siyu chatted with Fu Yun Ruo. "Will we go home after filming tomorrow?"
Yes.
"Do you want to go on a trip to avoid the heat?" Siyu glanced at Wenwen, who was walking with a bulging stomach. This little guy hasn't been to the beach yet, right? The weather in the capital was the hottest time of the year. In the past, if Siyu was not filming at this time, he would basically go home to avoid the heat. Fu Yun was a little hesitant. Wenwen had lived in the countryside with her for the past 4 years. This year, they came to the capital only to have fun nearby. They had not even been to the tourist areas in the nearby cities, let alone the beach. She really wanted to bring Wenwen out to broaden her horizons. Wenwen was very happy to be able to go out with her mother, but when she saw that Siyu wanted to follow, she immediately said, "I'll go with Mom." Siyu said slowly, "A weak woman with a child outside will easily become a target for bad people." Wenwen was not convinced. "I can protect Mom." "You?" Siyu glanced at him, her eyes full of doubt. Wenwen looked at his small body. All right, he was not very persuasive. He was instantly discouraged and snorted. I'll grow up very quickly. Fu Yun did not immediately nod. We'll talk about it later. If they were going to avoid the heat, where would they go? For a few days? How would they go? These were all problems, and he couldn't just leave like that. Wen said, the movie will be officially released in a week. Wen looked up at Fu Yun with bright eyes. Although he was very willing to go out to play, he could do it at any time. If he missed the opportunity to watch the movie, he would miss it. Between the two, watching the movie was naturally more important. Fu Yun also remembered this matter when she heard this. They wanted to watch the movie as soon as it was released. A week's time would not be very far. No, there should be cinemas in the coastal cities in the country, right? She almost got tricked by Wen. Wen said, Mom, let's go again next time. Wen made a face at Siyu. It was not what he wanted. Siyu smiled and said, Indeed, I didn't think it through. Wen has just started learning. If he slacks off, he will probably have learned for nothing. Wen was extremely indignant. He did not have the memory of a goldfish. How could he forget what he had learned? He would not learn for nothing. Seeing this, Fu Yun did not mention going on a vacation anymore. Just as they stepped out of the elevator, Siyu received a call. After listening to what the other party said, he only said calmly, I'll have a video conference in 5 minutes. Fu Yun looked over curiously. Siyu hung up the phone and said to Fu Yun, There's something at the company. I'll go and settle it first. Fu Yun nodded. Then, Siyu returned to his suite. Fu Yun and Wen also entered the room. Fu Yun was very curious. She only knew that Siyu had always been the pillar of Apple Entertainment. He did not set up his own studio. She did not know that he had a company. Did he start it himself? She finally knew what Siyu was doing when he was not filming. He must be starting a business. Fu Yun thought back to the original novel. After Siyu left the entertainment industry, there was no news of him. It seemed that he must have succeeded in starting a business and became the CEO. Then, he left the entertainment industry. It was not convenient to take a walk outside the hotel. Fortunately, the 5-star suite was spacious enough. Fu Yun brought Wen to walk around the room. Then, she began to make video calls to Uncle Gua and Aunt May. A day passed just like that. Today was Wen's last day on set. His scenes were completed. The production crew still had to prepare a banquet for Wen, but Fu Yun politely rejected it. Last time, Wen's scenes were quite important. He was considered one of the important supporting roles. It was also Wen's first film. It was understandable that they specially prepared a banquet for him. However, in this production crew, Wen could only be considered as a minor supporting role. He appeared more in the early stages of the movie. Later on, there were some flashbacks. It was unknown if the edited scenes were more than 5 minutes long. Because this was a Xinsha drama with the female lead, the male lead did not have as many scenes as the female lead. Because they worked well together, Fu Yun did not want to cause trouble for them. The director looked at Siyu and Fu Yun and asked for their opinion. We want Wen to film this scene with a wire. Is that okay? The male lead was the disciple of the sect leader of an immortal sect. He was very talented and knew how to fly on a sword at a young age. This scene of a little fairy child's immortal aura was what made the little female lead remember it in her heart and made her determined to cultivate immortality. Because Wen acted very well, the director subconsciously raised his expectations. He hoped that Wen could film this scene. However, he also knew that adults might not be able to overcome the fear of being suspended in midair, let alone film it naturally. Wen was still a child. Moreover, there was a certain degree of danger in hanging from a wire, so the director first asked for the adults' opinions. Fu Yun rejected it at first. Even if she had never acted before, she had eyes to see. This was a Xinsha drama. There were many people hanging from wires and flying around. Even if they did not complain, after being suspended in midair for half a day, they walked a little unnaturally after coming down. Fu Yun accidentally saw an 18-year-old girl secretly crying. Filming was also very tiring. Fu Yun thought that when Wen was still so young and tender, wouldn't it be even more uncomfortable to be strangled by a wire? Just thinking about it made her heart ache. Mom, I want to film it. Wen said firmly. It will be very painful and tiring, okay? I'm not afraid. He was mentally prepared. In his previous life, he had hung from wires countless times. Sometimes, he would be suspended in midair for a few days. His thighs would be bruised and worn until they bled. However, he wanted to make every role he filmed perfect. Siyu did not express any opinions on this. Whether one agreed or not, he would agree. However, this kid made him think even more highly of him. He was willing to endure hardships at such a young age. He did not know if he would cry when he was done hanging. In the end, under Wen's insistence, Fu Yun had no choice but to compromise. However, she asked the crew to check the wires again and again to see if there were any problems. Then, she borrowed soft cushions from others. Before filming began, Fu Yun was still worried and went to see the props team to check the equipment. The props master in charge of the wires was a simple and honest middle-aged man. He checked again and said, "Miss Fu, don't worry. Our props are from a big brand with the best quality. There has never been a problem." As the crew had sufficient funds, the director was rich and bought all the props and equipment. This was the most frequently used pressure, and it was the most important thing. Fu Yun smiled at the middle-aged man. "Of course I'm very assured. However, I won't feel at ease if I don't see it with my own eyes." She had heard that there had been many pressure accidents. It could be said that she was worrying too much. However, she would not feel at ease if she did not check it with her own eyes. Just the thought of one when being hung in midair made her feel very uneasy. The middle-aged man expressed his understanding. After all, it was his son who was hanging from the wire, so he had to be more careful. He explained to Fu Yun as he checked. Finally, he said to Fu Yun, "It's all fine. Thank you." After Fu Yun confirmed that there was no problem, she thanked him sincerely. Then, she turned around and walked over to the crew, preparing to watch it personally. Just as Fu Yun left, a young man wearing a black hat walked over from the corner. "Was that Miss Fu?" "Yes. Where did you go just now?" the middle-aged man asked curiously. The young man was also a props master. He could be said to be the middle-aged man's assistant. He had not seen him for a long time and did not know where he had gone. The young man clutched his stomach and said with an ugly expression, "I just went to the toilet and had diarrhea." Seeing this, the middle-aged man asked with concern, "Are you all right now? Do you want to go back and rest?" "Don't worry, I won't deduct your salary today." "No, there's no need." The young man refused. Then, he said warmly, "Big brother, you've worked hard just now. Go and rest for a while. I'll take care of this. I guarantee that there won't be any problems." The middle-aged man naturally trusted him. The two of them had worked together for so long, and the young man had never made any mistakes. Coincidentally, he was thirsty, and there was no one in the water bottle. Hence, he instructed the young man to stay close to him before taking his own water bottle to get some water. After the young man watched the middle-aged man leave, his gaze landed on the wire and his eyes flashed. Chapter 106. When Fu Yun went over, the director was explaining to Wan in detail how to shoot the scene later. If they could get it done in one take, they wouldn't have to suffer so much. Wen's little face was serious, and he nodded from time to time to express his understanding. After a while, the director ordered the set to be set up and all the actors were ready. Wen stood at the side and waited for the staff to tighten the wire for him. Fu Yun watched from the side and couldn't help but ask, "It won't be very high, right?" The director said, It won't be. It'll be at most 3 to 4 meters high." See, you saw that Fu Yun was so nervous and comforted her. It's normal to be attached to a wire when filming. There will be more dangerous things in the future, such as jumping off cliffs, jumping from tall buildings, driving cars, and so on. Although other people usually used a stunt double, you never used a stunt double. He felt that Wen wouldn't use a stunt double in the future either, so he just had to get used to it. Fu Yun heard this and couldn't help but look at him silently. "Don't say anything if you don't know how to comfort people." His words made her even more worried. If Wen experienced so many dangerous things, she wouldn't be able to sleep. "Okay? See you." Actually, there weren't many opportunities like this. Everything was ready and all the actors were in place. The onlookers walked out and made way for the filming space to prevent the camera from filming unrelated people. Then, they started to shoot the scene. Fu Yun watched from the side. She didn't know how to act, but she could see that Wen, who was filming, was completely immersed in the role. It made people feel that he was a character in the drama. No wonder the director thought so highly of Wen. Some people were born to be in this bowl of rice. The wire lifted Wen up slowly from a low altitude until it stopped at a height of 3 meters. Wen had been pampered for many years and was no longer the person who had suffered so much in her previous life. He realized that he had become weak. When he was lifted up just now, he only felt that his body was very tight, and he felt very uncomfortable all over. The first time, he wasn't prepared and didn't control his expression well. The director shouted, "Cut," and then quickly put him down. Fu Yun couldn't help but run over. Wen was disappointed that he failed on his first try, but he still comforted her. "Mom, I'm fine." Fu Yun wanted to say that they should stop filming. Her heart ached when she saw Wen, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. Siyu pulled Fu Yunrua's hand and said, "Let's go." From the moment the wire pulled him up, he was the disciple of the immortal sect's master, a true genius. The gentle wind lifted him up. The moment he flew forward, his pure white Taoist robe fluttered, and he looked like an immortal descending. Even if the protagonist was a child, everyone present was subdued by his aura. After Wen finished his lines, the director was silent for a moment and shouted, "Cut." He was extremely excited. He never expected that Wen would perform so well. This scene was really great. It would definitely become a classic. The director looked at the return interview excitedly. Wen was hanging up and didn't hear the director speak. He didn't know if it had passed. He turned his head to look and his small body swayed. Fu Yun had been paying attention to Wen. Although she was also mesmerized by the scene just now, she was more concerned about Wen. So she quickly came back to her senses. She saw that Wen had been hanging up and his small body was uncomfortable. She quickly shouted, "Quickly put Wen down." Only then did the others react. "Yes, quickly put him down." However, before the middle-aged man could start, one of the steel wires hanging on Wen suddenly broke. Wen's body tilted and his entire body swayed. The other steel wires also broke quickly. The small person accidentally knocked over a fallen flower pot on the balcony and fell straight down. Fu Yun's pupils suddenly constricted. She was so frightened that she stopped breathing and her mind went blank. She ran over like the wind and instantly appeared below Wen with her hands open. However, in the next moment, a pair of hands pushed Fu Yun away. The person behind her took her position and raised his hands to steady himself to reduce the impact. There were 2 cracking sounds, as if they heard the sound of bones breaking. At the same time, the tall body was also brought down by the remaining impact and fell to the ground with a thud. This happened in an instant. The others didn't react at all and were stunned by this unforeseen event. "Ah!" Someone suddenly screamed, breaking the silence in an instant. "Ah!" Some of the timid staff and actors screamed one after another. The scene was in chaos. Fu Yun fell to the side and sat down. Her mind was blank as if she had lost her soul. She didn't react at all. Although he used his hands to reduce the impact, the heavy weight hit his chest. Siyu coughed twice and spat out a mouthful of blood. The bodyguards who were outside reacted faster and quickly ran over. Siyu's face was pale, and he immediately ordered, "Seal the scene. Even flies are not allowed to enter." "Ambulance." Then, he didn't say anything else. The bodyguards contacted the outside and quickly controlled the scene. The director also quickly reacted and was very cooperative. Everyone present was not allowed to move, and all mobile phones were confiscated. Fu Yun's body went soft. She stared blankly at the big and small person smashed together. Her teeth were chattering, and she was extremely frightened. When Wen discovered that the steel wires had broken, he realized that something was wrong. However, all the steel wires broke too quickly, and he didn't have time to remind her. When he fell, he thought that his mother would definitely be sad. If something happened to him, Siyu would still be with his mother, Wenwen closed his eyes and waited for the pain to come. However, when he felt that he had landed, he realized that although his body was in pain, he didn't lose consciousness. The ground wasn't soft, but it was warm. Wenwen opened his eyes and saw a thick chest very close. Only then did he realize that he was being protected tightly. He had been caught by someone, and the person who had caught him despite the danger was "See Mom," Wenwen muttered. Fu Yun quivered, and her consciousness returned. She reached out her trembling hand and didn't dare to touch him. How could this be? She had been very careful to check him again. Why did this happen? Wenwen, see you. Fu Yun couldn't stop trembling. Ruah, don't be afraid. We're fine. See you tried his best to comfort her. He knew that he must have scared Fu Yun. Fu Yun tried her best to stay rational. Help. Ambulance. She wanted to help, but she knew that people with internal injuries couldn't move their bodies freely. Fu Yun didn't dare to touch them. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. Yuan Xian rushed over with the other bodyguards. He happened to be nearby, and the bodyguards contacted him immediately. At the same time, the ambulance also arrived. More than 10 medical staff carried stretchers and rushed over. They first gave the two of them first aid. There were also doctors who came with them. They only felt relieved after confirming that the patients' lives weren't in danger. However, it was still not optimistic. They moved Wenwen onto the stretcher very professionally and carefully. Then, they carried Siyu onto another stretcher and left quickly. Fu Yun finally regained her strength and left with the stretcher. Before leaving, Fu Yun looked at Yuan Xian. Brother Yuan? Yuan Xian promised. Leave this to me. After Yuan Xian confirmed that their lives weren't in danger, he stayed behind to deal with the aftermath. First, he had to confirm whether this was an accident or man-made. The director was worried. I don't know why this happened either. Don't worry, I'll definitely give you an explanation. Yuan Xian's face was cold and he didn't say anything. The bodyguards were professional in their investigation. They quickly found out that the wires were damaged by someone. Then, they quickly sorted out the relevant personnel who had come into contact with the wire equipment. The middle-aged man still couldn't believe it. His face was pale. How could this happen? How could this happen? He had checked again and again and confirmed it clearly. The bodyguards interrogated and quickly found the suspect. It was the middle-aged man's assistant. After they checked, he was the only one who had come into contact with the wire equipment. However, when the middle-aged man returned with water, he said that he had a stomachache and went to the washroom. But the bodyguards had already checked and found that he was no longer in the washroom. It was obvious that he had escaped. When the director heard this, his face became extremely ugly. Their production team had been going smoothly, but something like this had happened. Yuan Xian said, "Call the police." When the director heard this, he immediately looked bitter. Calling the police will affect the production team. Why don't we settle it privately? Yuan Xian said coldly, this is already murder. How can we settle it privately? They were lucky this time. If they were unlucky, it would be 2 lives. If anything happened to these 2 people, the sky would collapse. The news won't leak out. The director smiled bitterly. Although Yuan Xian said that there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Even though the internet blocked the news of Cu and Wenwen, the news of a certain production team being suspected of having an accident still caused a stir. Everyone sought confirmation. However, no one in the production team came out to explain, which confirmed this rumor. And Fu Yun and Wenwen's fans all knew that Wenwen had filmed another movie and was in this production team. When they heard that something had happened, how could they not be anxious? What had happened? Who was in trouble? Why didn't anyone come out to clarify? The rumors on the internet were strange and variegated, and they even made it to the hot searches. But there was no news about Wenwen. Fu Yun and the others did not have time to pay attention to the news on the internet. The ambulance that came this time was private, and the whole process was very confidential. Fu Yun followed into the ambulance. The interior of the ambulance was very spacious, and there was a lot of equipment. It could be said to be a small operating theater. Siyu's face was calm. If not for his pale face, no one would be able to tell that he was injured. How's the child? The child is fine. The doctor wearing a mask obviously knew Siyu. He pressed a few times on Siyu and the others and clicked his tongue. You'd better worry about yourself first. Fuyan heard the doctor say that Wenwen's problem was not serious, so she was relieved at first. But when she heard the last sentence, her heart jumped. How's Mr. Yu? Wenwen was restrained on another bed and could not move at all. She blinked her eyes and tried her best to turn her head to look over. She was silent and concerned. The doctor looked at Siyu and then at the anxious woman with red eyes. He said meaningfully, it's serious. However, before he could exaggerate, he received a warning glance from Siyu. Chapter 107. Fuyun Ruo did not notice the sharp glances between Siyu and the doctor. She looked at the doctor nervously and fearfully, afraid that he would say something she did not want to hear. The doctor pursed his lips and then said to Fuyun Ruo seriously, 2 of his ribs are broken and both of his hands are dislocated. However, his injuries are not serious and his life is not in danger. Otherwise, he would not be so calm and even want to see his employer make a fool of himself. Unfortunately, his employer's rare joke was not good. Siyu said, I'm fine, don't worry. Fuyun Ruo's tears fell drop by drop. Don't cry, the child needs you. Fuyun Ruo wiped her tears and looked at Wenwen in a panic. He was frightened and needed her the most. She had to be strong. Wenwen Ruo did not have any obvious injuries on his body, but he fell from a high place and his internal organs were shocked. He also suffered some internal injuries. The little person was lying on the small white bed and could not move. He looked pitiful. Mommy, Wenwen called out softly. His face was also a little pale. Mommy is here. Fuyun Ruo held Wenwen's little hand tightly. Her cold palm warmed up after a while. The ambulance stopped at the entrance of a hospital and entered from another side door. Then, it went directly into the operating room. Siyu suffered some internal injuries. Fortunately, the broken ribs did not poke into his internal organs. Although Siyu felt a little uncomfortable and felt pain when he breathed, it was not unbearable. During this period, Siyu did not faint. It was not obvious on his face, but in fact, he was suffering. He only felt better when he entered the operating room and was anesthetized. Wenwen also entered the operating room. His whole body had to be checked carefully. Fuyun Ruo stayed outside alone and waited for them. She stood in the corridor and felt a chill from the bottom of her feet. It was so cold that she could not help but hug herself tightly. There were not many people in the corridor. There were only a few medical staff walking back and forth from time to time. There were only 1 or 2 patients. However, when the patient saw her, he only took a few more glances and did not go forward to disturb her. This was a private hospital that was famous for its exorbitant fees, highly skilled doctors, and strong privacy. It had always been a place where rich people came to when they were sick. Along the way, they did not meet any outsiders. Fuyun stood straight in the corridor, and no one came forward to disturb her. After a long while, Fuyun's slow brain finally started to work. She could not figure out how an accident could have happened. Was there a problem with the prop master? She obviously didn't feel any malice from him. Perhaps it was because one couldn't judge a book by its cover. She had seen with her own eyes that there was no problem with the props master's careful inspection. With the weight of Wenwen's small body, it was impossible for so many steel wires to be broken. It was obviously abnormal. If Fuyun could guess, the wire must have been maliciously damaged after she left. Even if it was not the prop master, he knew who was the suspect. Thinking of this, Fuyun Ruo quickly called Yuan Xian. The phone was picked up as soon as it rang, and Yuan Xian's concerned voice came over. Yun Ruo, is there a situation with Siyu? No. Mr. Yu is still in the operating room. Fuyun Ruo's voice was low, but she still remembered the reason why she called. I want to tell you that even if the prop master did not do it, he still has some clues. The wire must have been damaged after I left. Fuyun Ruo told Yuan Xian everything that happened before and after the accident without any details, as she was afraid that she would miss out on a single detail. Yuan Xian listened to her and said, "Don't worry. We have already found the culprit and are looking for him now. You can stay in the hospital at ease. Leave this matter to me." Yuan Xian's voice was very calm and inexplicably comforted Fu Yunruo's uneasy heart. When she heard that the culprit was confirmed, she immediately asked, "Who is it?" Yuan Xian said a name, but Fu Yunruo had never heard of it before. However, Yuan Xian said that he had already sent people to investigate this person. They did not believe it. If there was no one behind this, how could a total stranger do such a heinous thing? Yuan Xian had already sent people to investigate, and he believed that the results would be found soon. "Thank you for your hard work, Yuan Gu. This is what I should do. I will go to the hospital after I am done with the things here." Okay. With such a big thing happening, there needed to be someone outside to take charge. Yuan Xian was the most suitable person, so no matter how worried he was, he suppressed his anxiety and stayed outside. His temper had been calm for too long, so long that people had forgotten his methods. Daring to make a move on his artiste, did he have 9 lives to squander? Fu Yunruo did not know that a storm was brewing outside, as this hospital seemed to be isolated from the outside world. After Fu Yunruo hung up the phone, her mind kept replaying the scene, and she felt a burst of fear in her heart. Fortunately, the position of the wire was not too high, but for a child with a tender body, if she fell from this height, even if she did not die, she would be crippled. Fu Yunruo had seen many news reports. There were countless cases of objects falling from high altitudes and people jumping off buildings to smash passers-by to death. If it was very high, not to mention when one, even see you could be, Fu Yunruo felt a chill when she thought of this. The other party was obviously targeting when one or targeting her. In this world, she had always been kind to others and had never made enemies with anyone, except for the male and female leads in the original work. Fu Yunruo's first thought was that they were the most suspicious people behind the scenes. If something happened to one, it would be more painful than killing her. She would never be able to forgive herself for the rest of her life and would be trapped in guilt and regret. Fu Yunruo's attitude towards them had always been to avoid them as much as possible. She did not want to have too much interaction with them and only wanted to lead her own life. But today's matter had touched her bottom line. If they were really found to be related to this matter, she would not let them off. When one was the first to come out, Fu Yunruo went over immediately and saw that when Wen's eyes were closed. He did not react when he was pushed out. Fu Yunruo's heart skipped a beat, and her face instantly turned pale. The doctor who followed them out explained in time, "The child is asleep. It's not a big deal. He doesn't have a concussion. He only has minor internal injuries. He needs to rest for a period of time. Don't do strenuous exercise or jump around." When one was still young, he had suffered and was frightened. His body instinctively protected him. After all the checks were done, he had already fallen asleep. However, he did not seem to be sleeping well. His little brows were furrowed subconsciously. Fu Yunruo nodded repeatedly. She looked at Wenwan without blinking. Wenwan was pushed out by the medical staff. Fu Yunruo was not at ease. She looked at the operating theater that was still lit up and then looked at Wenwan. She hesitated for a moment before following them. They went to a high-class VIP ward. The medical staff carefully moved Wenwan to the bed and laid him down. There were also 2 medical staff who were on standby at any time. Fu Yunruo watched for a while and was sure that Wenwan would not wake up for a while. There were also nurses in the ward by the side. Hence, she walked out and went to the operating theater again. When Siyu came out of the operating theater, the effect of the anesthetic had not worn off. No matter how strong his willpower was, he could not hold on any longer and had already fallen asleep. Fu Yunruo saw that Siyu had changed into a plain hospital gown. His hands were fixed in plaster, and his body was wrapped in elastic bandages. Fu Yunruo's eyes immediately turned red. "Doctor, how is he? Was he sure that he was not seriously injured?" Fu Yunruo was relieved because Siyu had been awake the whole time, and the doctor said that his injuries were not serious. Looking at this, how could his injuries not be serious? The doctor explained in all seriousness, His joints have been reset, but he needs to recuperate well. He can't carry heavy objects or move his hands vigorously for the next 2 to 3 years. His ribs have been reset through surgery and his internal organs have been injured. He needs to rest for at least half a year to recover. Siyu had been awake the whole time and had relied on his strong willpower to support himself. For joints in his hands had been dislocated and were severely strained. His internal injuries were not light either. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been in so much pain that he would have fainted on his own. However, Siyu did not want his child and his mother to worry, so he forced himself to hold on. The doctor did not have any intention of covering up for Siyu. After slightly exaggerating his injuries, he even sighed. When Fu Yunrua heard this, she felt guilty, grateful, and sad. Her eyes turned red again. If Siyu did not run out to replace her, he would not have been injured. Siyu did it to save her and won. This was also the first time that Fu Yunrua realized that she had the potential to be a sprint champion. She did not know how she ran over in 1 or 2 seconds. She also did not know that Siyu would come over in such a timely manner. Wen was her child, so she did not hesitate to protect her child. What about Siyu? Fu Yunrua could not help but believe that in Siyu's heart, Wen and her were so important that he would risk his own safety to protect them. Siyu was sent to the VIP ward. When Fu Yunrua looked up, she found it familiar. She even saw the medical staff in the room. Wasn't this Wen's ward? This VIP ward was more than 100 square meters. There was also another room. Perhaps it was usually used to accompany the ward, but it did not affect its use. Very quickly, it was tidied up for Siyu to stay in. Rounding up, they were staying in the same ward. Fu Yunrua did not have any objections. She felt that it was better for them to stay together. It would be more convenient for her to take care of Siyu together. An adult and a child lay in the room with an 4 drip on their hands. There were medical staff paying attention to them. Fu Yunrua looked at this one moment and then looked at that one moment. At this moment, she also noticed that this ward did not look like a ward. Not to mention that it was spacious. If she had not been in the hospital all this time, she would have thought that she was staying in someone's house. This house looked like a normal house. The overall color was not pure white. Instead, it was very indifferent and comfortable gray. It was matched with warm, soft clothes. There was a large screen television hanging on one side of the wall. There was also a sofa and a coffee table. She did not know that the hospital had such a ward, but at least it looked more comfortable. Staying in such a ward to recuperate made her feel less depressed. When one did not sleep well, his consciousness seemed to have returned to his previous life. He stood at the edge of the rooftop of a tall building and looked down. In the distance, there was an endless stream of traffic. He was as small as an ant. The wind was not gentle, and it made him sway. At that time, he was like a rat crossing the street. Everyone wanted to beat him up. He had a bad reputation and had nothing. He was deserted by everyone. Those who were unwilling to stay away from him and betrayed his close friends were implicated by him and did not have a good ending. Some died, some were injured, and some were forced to go abroad and never returned. At that time, he always thought that if he was no longer around, his friends would not be targeted anymore. He resented the injustice in this world. He resented those who forced him to go to this point. The invisible wind whistled past his ears. A strong sense of weightlessness came over him. The little person on the bed suddenly opened his eyes. When panted lightly, his large eyes were filled with deep depression. Baby? Fu Yunrua had just come out of Siyu's room when she heard movement from the bed. She hurriedly ran over. Baby, you're awake. Fu Yunrua noticed the fine sweat on his forehead. Her heart ached as she wiped the sweat for him. Did you have a nightmare? Don't be afraid. Mummy's here. Mummy's here. Fu Yunrua carefully hugged Wen and kept comforting him. Wen lay in Fu Yunrua's arms. He was surrounded by a familiar aura. His eyes slowly regained their clarity. Mummy. Wen's voice was a little hoarse. He looked up at Fu Yunrua and could not help but hug her with both hands. He buried his head in her shoulders. Wen lowered his eyelashes to hide the emotions in his eyes. He muttered a few times. Fu Yunruo responded every time. Wenwen clenched Fu Yunruo's small hand tightly. Because he had a chance to start over, he did not resent the injustice of the heavens. All the disasters in his previous life had not happened yet. He still had the chance to prevent all the disasters from happening. In this life, even if those annoying people were jumping around, they had not done those things in this life. At most, he had only expressed his displeasure and did not do anything. He thought that he had to be a good child. Moreover, he had always been under his mummy's eyes. He did not dare to do anything bad. He did not want his mummy to be disappointed in him. He never thought that they would want his life. When one thought that since this was the case, they could not blame him. Mummy, where's Uncle Yu? When one restrained the emotions in his eyes, he thought of Siyu who had always protected him. His heart was even more complicated. He did not expect that Siyu would disregard the danger to save him. Because he did not appear in his previous life, the awkwardness caused him to waver. In the past, he had walked into a dead end. Even if he knew that he could not be blamed, he could not help but feel resentful. If he had appeared, would the ending be different? Perhaps he could have lived a happy life like this in his previous life. Wenwen kept thinking about what his mummy had explained to him. He did not know of their existence, so he did not appear. If he knew, he would definitely come to find them. It could only be said that his previous life was a mistake due to a combination of factors. In his previous life, he had no parents. Then in this life, with his mummy's love and daddy's love, wouldn't he be happier? Could it be that he had to wait until he lost them before he regretted it? When one thought of the dazzling pool of blood he saw when he looked up, his small body could not help but tremble. He's in the next room. Fu Yunruo hugged Wenwen and comforted him. When one looked up, his big watery eyes looked at Fu Yunruo. I want to see him, okay. Fu Yunruo carefully carried Wenwen and walked to the next room. Uncle Yu has just finished his surgery and is resting. Let's be careful. Take a look. Before Fu Yunruo could finish speaking, she saw that the person who was originally sleeping on the bed had already sat up with the help of the medical staff. His back was leaning against the soft cushion. Mr. Yu, you're awake. Fu Yunruo was pleasantly surprised. She walked over and asked with concern, Does your body still hurt? Do you want the doctor to come over and give you a painkiller? Fu Yunruo looked at the plaster bandages. His heart was throbbing with pain. No need, I'm fine. The effect of the anesthesia was slowly wearing off. Siyu felt the pain all over his body, but he could still endure it. There was nothing unusual on his face. Siyu's eyes were smiling. He looked at Wenwen. Seeing that he was not energetic, there was nothing wrong with his body, so he asked about Wenwen's injuries again. Fu Yunruo repeated the doctor's words in detail. Wenwen's eyes were fixed on Siyu. Seeing the bandages on his body, he felt extremely uncomfortable. Siyu saw that Wenwen was looking at him and could not help but ask, Wenwen, come over and let me hug you? Although the little guy was fine, Siyu really wanted to hug him. Wenwen stayed in Fu Yunruo's arms, hesitating and not moving. Siyu subconsciously wanted to raise his head, but his hands were fixed in the plaster. Moving for a long time would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Fu Yunruo quickly said, Don't move. She lowered her head and looked at Wenwen. She carried him over and carefully placed him on the bed. Siyu looked at Wenwen. His voice was low and weak. I can't move my hands. Wenwen, come over and hug me, okay? Wenwen sat by the bed. He looked at Siyu and hesitated for a while. Then, he slowly moved over and took the initiative to gently lean against Siyu's side. Because Siyu's body and hands were in plaster and bandages, Wenwen did not dare to press on him. Hence, he leaned against him gently. Even so, Siyu was already very satisfied. This was the first time Wenwen had been so close to him. Wenwen leaned against him and did not say a word. Fu Yunruo looked at the adult and child. She did not know why, but she suddenly felt sad. However, this heartwarming scene did not last long and was quickly broken. Yuan Xian came to the hospital with a large group of people. Ruruo, where's Wenwen? How are his injuries? Uncle Gua deliberately lowered his voice, but could not hide his anxiety. He walked in front and saw Wen leaning against Siyu. He quickly went over. Wen, my dear, where are you injured? Fu Yunruo looked around and saw the large group of people. She was stunned. Why are all of you here? Tian said, how can we not come over when such a big thing happened? Are you all okay? Not only did Uncle Gua and Tian come, but Qin Xingnan and Qi Weiqing also came. If it weren't for the fact that there were people at the flower garden, Uncle Zhang and the rest would have come too. Tian and the rest heard the news immediately and immediately confirmed it with Yuan Xian. Tian was in charge of Fu Yunruo's studio and worked closely with Yuan Xian's team. Yuan Xian did not hide it and told Tian the truth. When Tian heard that when one had fallen from a high place, how could she sit still? After helping to control the public opinion online, she asked for the hospital's address and rushed over. As for Uncle Gua, it was Qi Weiqing who spread the news. Qi Weiqing only dared to tell the teacher after confirming that Wen's injuries were not serious. Otherwise, he would definitely have kept it a secret. When Uncle Gua heard that Wen was injured, he immediately put down what he was doing and asked Qi Weiqing to send him over. When Fu Yunruo saw that Uncle Gua had also come, she looked at Brother Qi disapprovingly. Uncle Gua was old and could not be agitated. What if something happened to him? Grandpa Gua. When Wen saw Uncle Gua and called out listlessly, Uncle Gua's heart ached. Wen, Grandpa Gua, don't worry. I'm fine. It's Uncle Yu. Uncle Gua's gaze shifted to see you. He had just saved Wen's life. Uncle Gua could not pull a long face and tried to maintain a kind and benevolent expression. Thank you for protecting Wen. Siyu smiled and said, this is what I should do. Uncle Gua immediately pulled a long face and stopped talking to him. He lowered his head and asked about Wen's well-being. The ward was bustling with noise and excitement. Fu Yunruo was busy comforting his relatives and friends. In the end, in order not to disturb Siyu's rest, everyone moved away. Fu Yunruo carried Wen out. They sat outside and talked softly. Wen was already sticking to Fu Yunruo's side. Fu Yunruo was now afraid of losing Wen. Only by carrying Wen would he feel safe. He did not mind his weight and carried him wherever he went. When he was tired, he would sit on the sofa. Fu Yunruo only dared to carry him all the time after confirming with the doctor. His injuries required rest, but as long as he did not move too much, he would be fine. Wen stayed in Fu Yunruo's arms and did not move at all. It was no different from lying on the bed. Wen was also afraid of leaving his mother. Everyone else came out. Yuan Xian did not follow them out. Instead, he pulled out a stool and sat by the bed. He looked like he was going to have a long talk. He reported the results of the investigation to Siyu. Siyu's subordinates were very outstanding. Yuan Xian used them to investigate this time and found out the cause and effect in half a day. As expected, it was the young man who had run away. They caught him at a bus station. Fortunately, they arrived in time. Otherwise, he would have run away. At first, the man refused to admit it, but not long after, they managed to pry open his mouth. They checked the man's life and all of his bank accounts. There was no abnormal cash flow in his account, and he had not come into contact with strangers. It seemed like he had no motive, but this person was Feng Shui's fanatic. He saw Feng Shui as his goddess and mingled in forums and groups of all sizes. Ever since the news spread in the group that his goddess had been banned because she had offended someone, he had been cursing the person who hurt his goddess. In his opinion, his goddess was very good. However, Fu Yunruo dared to be dissatisfied. He felt that Feng Shui Ruo had been wronged in the Fu family. The Fu family had such a good person like Feng Shui Ruo. It was the Fu family's good fortune. Wasn't it natural for the young master of the Chang family to like their goddess? If Fu Yun knew what was good for him, he would obediently give up his position. When he found out that his goddess's reputation had been ruined because of this woman and she had been banned, he resented this woman for appearing again. She had disappeared not long ago. He vented his malice and dissatisfaction in the group with other fans. He even unscrupulously said 100 ways to hurt them. Finally, a stranger contacted him. He said that he was also Feng Shui Ruo's fan and that he was close to Feng Shui Ruo. He also said a lot of insider information that was not available online. The man did not believe his identity at first. Later, he gradually dispelled his doubts and regarded him as a confidant. Later, he had the opportunity to join the crew and saw the person he hated the most. He could not help but complain to his confidant. If something happens to the child, she should be in a lot of pain, right? This sentence gave the man an idea. He had been waiting for an opportunity to make a move, but he never found the opportunity. He did not expect that on the last day, he would finally have the opportunity to make a move. That was how things happened. In reality, he was a shy young man. Who would have thought that he would be crazy online? Yuan Xian was interrogated for a long time, but he did not find out who his confidant was. He did not know the other party's identity. He logged into his account to check on this person, but found that this person was no longer there. Chapter 108. After Yuan Xian told Siyu the results of their investigation, Siyu's face turned icy cold. His eyes flashed coldly. He had been too careless. Originally, he thought that it would be enough to shut Feng Shui out of the entertainment industry and make the Chang family withdraw from the entertainment industry. Now, it seemed that he had been too kind. The Chang family had always supported Feng Shui. If he wanted to make her disappear from the entertainment industry, he had to make her support disappear as well. The Fu family was Fu Yunrua's original family after all, and that blood relationship could not be broken. Therefore, he turned a blind eye to the Fu family when he saw that the Fu family did not step forward to provide Feng Shuerua with resources. Now that they did not explicitly support Feng Shuerua, he turned a blind eye to the Fu family. As for the Chang family, he had been slowly weakening their position. He had just seen results, but now, it seemed that he had been too slow. As for why he didn't let the Chang family break off the engagement and stop them from being Feng Shui's support. Siyu felt that the internet had always been right. They were a match made in heaven and should be bound together forever. He would rather destroy 10 temples than break up a marriage. He was such a conscientious person. Of course, he was worried that Chang Zhuyu would pester Fu Yun after he broke off the engagement. Now that Feng Shui's resources were mainly provided by the Chang family, she would disappear completely once the Chang family fell. Siyu said, Feng Shui wasn't the one who did this. She must have something to do with it. Find evidence in the next 2 days. As long as it's confirmed that she has something to do with it, make it up even if you don't have evidence. As for the person who did it, sue him according to the law and punish him severely. This was murder, and it was done to a child. It was too horrible. Siyu didn't arrange for too many bodyguards because the child was always under his watch and her identity hadn't been exposed. After this incident, he should arrange for more bodyguards. Alright, there are many opinions out there. Should we continue to suppress it? This matter had been suppressed by them and had not been exposed yet. However, this was something that would happen sooner or later. There were so many witnesses at the scene. Even if they all shut up, there would always be someone who would accidentally spill the beans. Now that all the media's attention was focused on the production team, the all-pervasive reporters would not let go of such an important piece of news. There were a lot of speculations on the internet and rumors had already spread. Even if it was to appease the fans, he had to report that he was safe. Siyu said faintly, there's no need to suppress it. They were the victims, so there was no need for them to spend so much effort to cover up for the perpetrator. This time, they had to make a scene, and the bigger the better. Yuan Xian's voice was calm. Don't worry, leave it to me. Fu Yun Ruo was comforting her relatives and friends outside. Wen hugged Fu Yun and leaned her head on her shoulder. She listened to the adults talk and soon fell asleep again. When Tian and the others saw this, they all took their leave and prepared to visit again tomorrow. Uncle Guo originally wanted to stay, but after being persuaded by Qi Weicheng and Fu Yun Ruo, he finally left. Fu Yun Ruo watched them leave. She hugged Wen, who had already fallen asleep and looked dependent and could not bear to put her down. Wen did not sleep well just now. If she put her to sleep, what if she woke up quickly? When Fu Yunruo saw that Yuan Xian had not come out of the room, she wondered if he had already found out the truth. Fu Yunruo was hesitating whether to listen in when Yuan Xian came out of the room. Brother Yuan. Before Fu Yunruo could ask, Yuan Xian had already said, there is no clear evidence of the mastermind behind this, but we already have a clue. He did not hide it and directly said that it was Feng Shuiruo's brainless fan who did such a crazy thing in the name of avenging her. Indeed, Fu Yunruo's guess was true, and Feng Shuiruo was indeed involved. When she heard that someone had induced him to do it, Fu Yunruo also guessed that it was Feng Shuiruo. However, she did not understand that if she let her brainless fan do it, the outside world would definitely link it to her. Was she so brainless? Perhaps this was what she wanted. In the name of being implicated by her fan, she abused her fan and made others sympathize with her. She also turned herself into a victim? Was she so confident that she would not be implicated? Was she sure that she had wiped her tail clean? After Yuan Xian finished explaining to Fu Yunruo, he quickly left. Fu Yunruo carried Wenwan and knocked on the door. When she heard Siyu's voice, she pushed the door open and entered. Siyu was still leaning against the cushion and looked at Fu Yunruo. Seeing that she kept carrying Wenwan, he said, "Why don't you put her to bed?" The little guy was not light, and it would be very tiring to carry her all the time. Fu Yunruo said softly, "I'm afraid that Wenwan will not be able to sleep well." Whether it was an adult or a child, if they were sick or injured, they would recover quickly by sleeping more. When Siyu saw Fu Yunruo's nervous look, he understood that not only was the child frightened, but even Fu Yunruo was also very frightened. She would only feel at ease when she carried the child. "Hence," he said softly, "why don't you put her on my bed and watch from the side?" With them by her side, Wenwan should be able to sleep well. Fu Yunruo hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she did not refuse. She carefully placed Wenwan on the side of the bed and covered her with a blanket. Wenwan lay on the bed and moved. Fu Yunruo gently comforted her and did not wake her up in the end. Fu Yunruo heaved a sigh of relief and sat on a stool at the side. Although this was a hospital bed, it was much bigger than a single bed in an ordinary hospital. Siyu's other bed was more than enough for Wenwan to sleep on. Fu Yunruo looked at Wenwan attentively and pinched her arm. Only then did she feel that her arm was very sore and numb, but it was much better after a while. After a long time, she turned her gaze to Siyu. She noticed that his lips were a little dry and felt very apologetic. Then, she went to pour a cup of warm water for Siyu. Most of her attention was on Wenwan, but Siyu was on their hands, so she should not ignore him. "Drink some water," Fu Yunruo said. Siyu thanked her, then looked at Fu Yunruo and said, "You're going to feed me?" Fu Yunruo was stunned. Her gaze wandered around his hands that were in plaster, and she felt even more apologetic. "Sorry, I forgot." His hands could not move, so she had to pass him the cup. Fu Yunruo leaned over slightly and passed the cup to his lips. Siyu cooperated and drank half the cup. Fu Yunruo put the cup aside and asked softly, "Are there any nurses in the hospital? If you're like this, do you need to find a nurse for help?" Fu Yunruo was very worried. Now that his hands could not move, his body could not move, and there must be a lot of inconveniences in his life. He could not do without someone to take care of him. Siyu said, "I'm already looking for one." After all, he was still a public figure, so looking for a nurse was more cautious. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Before he could finish speaking, the doctor arrived. This doctor was the young doctor who had personally operated on Siyu. He had been wearing a mask previously, so Fu Yunruo did not pay attention to his appearance. She only heard that he sounded very young. Now that the other party had taken off his mask, his handsome face was revealed. He was indeed very young and looked to be in his early 30s. However, he looked a little familiar. "Hello, Miss Fu." The man gave Fu Yunruo a kind smile and greeted her warmly. "I've heard a lot about you." "Hello, thank you so much." "You're welcome. We have been friends with the C family for many generations. Moreover, it's the duty of a doctor to save lives and heal the injured." Fu Yunruo was right. No wonder this doctor seemed to be very familiar with Siyu and her. However, she was sure that she had not seen this person in her memory. Fu Yunruo looked at Siyu with a puzzled gaze. Siyu explained, his surname is Ming. You can call him Dr. Ming. When Fu Yunruo heard this surname, she quickly thought of Dr. Ming who had come to treat her when she was sick a few months ago. No wonder she felt that he looked familiar. Didn't he look a little similar to Dr. Ming? Very quickly, Fu Yunruo understood their relationship. This Dr. Ming was Dr. Ming's cousin. The Ming family had been in the medical field for generations and could be said to be a medical family. Everyone in the Ming family was in the medical field. Because of their family background, all of them had inherited the medical talent of the Ming family. Moreover, their primary education was medical books such as the Compendium of Materia Medica. Therefore, the children of the Ming family were all very outstanding in the medical field. Although this Dr. Ming was young, he was already a specialist and a chief physician. He was also an attending physician and had performed countless surgeries. Her cousin had gone overseas for an exchange and would not be back for a while. Therefore, when Siyu was in trouble, Dr. Meng Xiao was in charge. As for their relationship with the Si family, they were already very close after a few generations. Everyone in the Ming family had extraordinary achievements in the medical field, but they did not have the talent for business. On the other hand, the Si family had some businesses that involved medicine. Whether it was the top medical equipment, the pharmaceutical industry, or high-class private hospitals, they were all involved. Moreover, the Si family had many top biological research institutes and many private territories that had naturally expensive medicinal herbs. They also had strong capital. The Ming family had been working with the Si family for a long time, so it could be said to be a win-win situation. They would unconditionally support the Ming family's medical research and development, and the Ming family would serve the Si family. In the Ming family, some worked in the Biological Genetic Research Institute, while others worked in the hospital. The Si family was also very generous and gave the Ming family some shares in the research institutes and hospitals. The Ming family did not have to worry about money and could focus on medical research. The Si family had a trusted medical team and did not have to worry about illness. Wasn't it a win-win situation? On the other hand, the Ming family had a daughter who married into the Si family. Strictly speaking, they were still related by marriage. However, now that they were separated by 3 or 4 generations, the relationship was very thin. Of course, Fu Yun did not know about the deeper and more complicated relationship between the Ming family and Siyu. When she heard that Dr. Ming and Dr. Ming were cousins, she felt even more close. She was concerned and asked if he could help find a nurse and when would she come. Dr. Ming patted his head and said apologetically, "The hospital hasn't found a suitable one yet. You also know that he is a public figure. Most of the hospital's nurses are his fans. Female nurses are not suitable to take care of him. As for male nurses, the hospital doesn't have many of them. The best nurses have already been hired, and the remaining ones are CU's fans." Now that he is injured and weak, what if those male nurses want to do something to CU? Don't you think so? These private hospitals specially hired a group of professional nurses to provide assistance to the patients when it was inconvenient for them to do so. Although the price was a little expensive, there was nothing to say about the professionalism. Those who understood the situation were too lazy to find other nurses who might not be suitable and directly let the hospital make the arrangements. When Fuyan heard this, didn't she feel that everything was inappropriate? Then what should we do? The weather was so hot now. Wouldn't he have to wipe his body? Also, what if he needed to go to the washroom? Siyu needed a male nurse by his side now. Otherwise, Dr. Ming said seriously, "I'll get the male nurses from the hospital to come over for the time being. But you also know that nurses are not nurses. They can't be here all the time, so I'll have to ask Miss Fu for help." Of course, Fu Yun didn't refuse. Other than helping to wipe the toilet on his body, she could help with anything else. This was the savior of both mother and son. It was her duty to help. Dr. Ming said, "The hospital's cafeteria has already opened. I'll have to trouble you to prepare food for them. They have to eat easily digestible liquid food. This way, not only could they replenish their nutrition, but it wouldn't cause too much of a burden on the body." Fu Yun looked at the time. It was already 6 o'clock in the evening. They should be hungry, so she immediately went to the cafeteria to pack food. Mr. Yu, please help to look after Wenwen. Fu Yun looked at Wenwen. They spoke in low voices and didn't wake him up. Instead, he slept even more soundly because he heard familiar voices. Siyu nodded. After Fu Yun left the room, Siyu looked at Dr. Ming with a faint smile. Since when can I afford to hire a nurse? Dr. Ming smiled embarrassedly and said shamelessly, Aren't I doing this for your own good? Oh, for my own good? Of course. Dr. Ming vowed. President C, I've wanted to say this for a long time. Dr. Ming clicked his tongue and winked. That Miss Fu is the future madam of the master, right? From the looks of it, you haven't confirmed your relationship yet. Dr. Ming looked miserable. Based on your method of wooing someone, how many years will it take for you to succeed? So you glanced at him calmly, but Dr. Ming wasn't afraid at all. He said with assurance, Look at you. You're injured, and it's time for you to show weakness. When it's time for you to feel pain, you don't have to be so strong. You should know that women are easily emotional and soft-hearted. If you show weakness, Miss Fu will definitely feel sorry for you. Dr. Ming imparted his experience earnestly. Your hands are injured, and it's inconvenient for you to do anything. This is the best time to warm up your relationship. At this time, don't think about not causing trouble for her. You have to bear everything silently. If you ask me, why do you need a nurse? Isn't it better for Miss Fu to take care of you personally? Let her help you wipe your body and show off your masculinity. When it's appropriate to cry out in pain, I'm sure you'll get her easily. See you. Dr. Ming looked as if he expected better from Siyu. He had never met someone so inexperienced. He didn't even know how to woo someone. TSK. Siyu looked up and glanced at him. Why are you so good at this? Are you no longer single? Dr. Ming, life is hard, brother. I'm someone who has had 3 girlfriends. Dr. Ming emphasized. Oh, Siyu was indifferent. So you're no longer single? Dr. Ming, goodbye. Our fake brotherly relationship is gone. Dr. Ming saw that Siyu was so energetic, so he checked again and left in a huff. If he were to give Siyu any more advice, he would be out of his mind. Siyu didn't care about the angry Dr. Ming. He didn't feel guilty about stabbing his brother in the heart at all. What he said was the truth. How could a single person have the cheek to impart his experience to him? He sneered. I heard everything. A childish voice sounded faintly. Siyu lowered his head and saw that Wenwen had woken up. She was looking at Siyu with her big bright eyes. Siyu, when did you wake up? When Uncle Doctor imparts his experience to you. Siyu, Wenwen's gaze was complicated. In the past, he would have exploded when he heard these words. But now, Wenwen looked at the plaster bandages. He couldn't explode. Fu Yun came back with the packed lunchbox and bumped into Dr. Ming, who was leaving the room. Fu Yun greeted him. Dr. Ming, you're leaving already? Young Dr. Ming restrained his anger and smiled gently. Yes, there's still a surgery to be performed later, Fu Yun said with admiration. Thank you for your hard work. It's my duty. The two of them left without exchanging any pleasantries. Fu Yun entered the room and saw Siyu and Wenwen staring at each other. Fu Yun was happy to see that Wenwen had woken up. She thought it was a coincidence. Wenwen, are you hungry? Mom packed a lot of delicious food. There was a dining table on the bed. Not only could she open the dining table and place it directly in front of Siyu, but there was also a movable dining table beside the bed. Fu Yun placed a bag of food in front of Siyu and then placed another bag of food on another dining table. She carefully carried Wenwen up and sat him down. Then, she opened the cutlery. Fu Yun asked the canteen staff what dishes were suitable for them. As for herself, she accompanied them and ate whatever was available. Fu Yun looked at Siyu and felt a little embarrassed. Mr. Yu, Wenwen is hungry. I'll feed him first, no matter what. Wenwen was the most important in Fu Yun's heart. Siyu understood, but he still felt a little jealous when he saw that his position was not as good as Wenwen's. But what could he do? This child was also his. Wenwen was still quite happy. When he realized that he was still number 1 in his mother's heart compared to Siyu's, the remaining sense of rejection disappeared instantly. Fu Yun fed Wenwen first. The little guy was weak now, so his mother had to feed him personally. Fu Yun gave in to him. Wenwen knew that Fu Yun definitely had not eaten yet, so she said, "Mom, eat too." Fu Yun originally said that she would eat after feeding them, but she could not resist Wenwen's insistence. Even Siyu said, "Eat with Wenwen first. I'm not in a hurry." In the end, under the insistence of the adult and child, Fu Yun ate with Wenwen. Basically, when Wenwen was full, Fu Yun would also be full after Fu Yun finished. As expected of a high-class private hospital, these patient meals were not worse than those prepared by a 5-star chef. Although the taste was lighter, it had a unique flavor. Fu Yun originally wanted to personally deliver meals to them tomorrow, but now that the canteen's food was so delicious, she did not need to spend so much time preparing 3 meals. She might as well use it to accompany the child and Siyu. After eating, Fu Yun immediately prepared to feed Siyu. The lunchbox was still warm, and Fu Yun took turns to use the spoon and chopsticks. At first, Fu Yun was very careful. After all, it was her first time taking care of an adult, and it was different from taking care of Wenwen. However, after familiarizing herself with it, she felt that there was no difference in feeding the adult and child. Wenwen watched as his mother took care of Siyu, and Siyu looked at his mother attentively and gently. He felt a little awkward and felt that his mother was about to be snatched away. He was unhappy. Siyu looked at the exquisite eyes in front of him, who was focused on feeding him. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. He suddenly felt that Xiaoming's words seemed to make some sense. The family of 3 in the hospital was getting along with each other tenderly, but outside, there was a storm of blood. After more and more evidence came out that Wenwen and Siyu were injured on set, more and more fans started to make a fuss. Siyu's family's fans were already a huge force. There were also Wenwen and Fu Yun Rua's fans. No matter how many fans they had, when they gathered their strength, it was as if they had entered an uninhabited land. The other fans kept quiet and did not dare to show their faces. Recently, Apple Entertainment could not withstand the pressure. In order to appease the fans, the company officially admitted that Siyu and Wenwen were injured. However, they also said that their lives were not in danger. They were now hospitalized and hoped that the fans would remain calm. When the fans heard the news, they were not at all uneasy and were very irritable. They were not appeased at all and demanded an explanation from the production team. They also pestered the company to ask about the details of the injuries. Some rational fans tried their best to appease the fans who had lost control of their emotions, but they also asked for an explanation. In the end, the police announced a case on their official website. It was like a drop of water falling into hot oil, causing an explosion. The officials announced a criminal case. Although they did not directly state the names, they directly referred to a certain production team and a certain celebrity. They also said that the case was still under investigation. Weren't the recent injuries Siyu and Wenwen? The netizens exploded. Their idol's injuries were not an accident, but a premeditated murder? How could this be? The all-pervasive netizens dug deeper into the matter, and the actual facts were revealed one by one. The wires had been destroyed by someone, Wenwen had fallen from a high place, and Siyu had been injured in order to save Wenwen. The direct culprit had already been arrested. It was said that the real culprit was still under investigation. The culprit had harmed Wenwen and Fu Yun because they felt that the appearance of their idol, Feng Shuirua, had harmed them. Fuck. Was this the reason for you to be so cruel to a child? The angry netizens demanded that the case be dealt with seriously under the official account. They also flooded Feng Shuirua's social media accounts to vent their anger. Feng Shuirua's fans still defended her, saying that it had nothing to do with her. They were anti-fans, not the real Snowball, and that the actions of fans had nothing to do with their idol. Some people also felt that Feng Shuirua was unlucky and was implicated by fans. However, as the video was released, the originally rational netizens instantly lost their minds. Chapter 109. Feng Shuirua was taken away by the police. Even though the video was taken secretly and wasn't clear, it was obvious that Feng Shuirua was taken away by the police. The person who claimed to be an eyewitness posted the video with a caption saying that she was arrested as a suspect. What did this mean? It meant that she wasn't innocent. Feng Shuiruo's fan count plummeted, and the passers-by stopped speaking up for her. Not only that, people in the entertainment industry who had followed her or interacted with her in the past all unfollowed and deleted all information related to her, afraid that they would be involved. Little Moon and Zai Zai's fans were all angry on Feng Shuiruo's social media account. Apart from that, there was also a large number of people who had quit being fans. Get out of the entertainment industry. Disgusting. I've never seen such a disgusting person. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. You won't even let a child off. The word vicious is not enough to describe you. I'm no longer a fan. Adults should solve their own problems. Involving children is really low. In the past, I didn't believe that you were so scheming. I thought that someone was slandering you, and I only believed what you said. But now, haha. Feng Shuiru, get out of the entertainment industry. Get out of the entertainment industry. There was a lot of resistance online. Even Snowball's stubborn resistance was drowned out by the sea of resistance. After tonight, it would be completely impossible for Feng Shui to return to the entertainment industry. Yuan Xian looked at the public opinion online. This time, he would not let Feng Shuiruo have a chance to make a comeback. Half an hour ago, Feng Shuiruo didn't go anywhere else at the Fu residence. She had nothing to do now except stay at home with her family and read the news online. Originally, she didn't have many good friends in the entertainment industry. Those who were usually very close to her slowly distanced themselves from her after seeing her fall into silence. Some of them even avoided her. As for those close friends she had in the aristocratic circle when she was young, after the incident with the Fu family was exposed, many of them, including the first wives and the real heiresses, distanced themselves from her. In the past, she used to play with Feng Shuiruo and laugh at Fu Yanruo. After she grew up, she understood the relationship between interests and Feng Shuiruo, other than a few illegitimate children who stuck close to her. However, Feng Shui also looked down on these people and disdained to interact with them. Only now did she realize that Chang Zhuyu was the only one by her side. She could only hold on tight to Chang Zhuyu. For the past few days, Feng Shui had been scrolling through the latest hot news. Perhaps it was because she was bored, or perhaps it was because of other reasons, but it was rare for her to stare at her phone all day long. It was the weekend and Fu Zonghong had been out for a few days. In the end, it was Fang Wanning who came looking for him personally and asked directly, "Is there someone out there? If you already have someone else, I can divorce you and give up my position." Fu Zonghong was so angry that his face turned red. He had a high social status. Even at his age, there were still young women who threw themselves at him. However, he had been indifferent to women since he was young. He was not like his other business partners, who had a wife at home but a mistress outside. When he was young, he did not even think about raising a mistress, let alone now that he was so old. He said in a rough voice, "There's no such thing. You're overthinking it." Fang Wanning still looked sad. She said slowly, "If there isn't someone out there, then what did I do wrong? So bad that you don't even go home?" At this point, Fu Zonghong still went home. Fu Zonghong was still a sentimental person. No matter what was wrong with Fang Wanning, at least she had taken care of him meticulously for the past 20 years. Even if she did not deserve credit, she had worked hard for him. He thought that since he was already so old, he was too lazy to do anything. As long as he was careful in the future, he would not let them hurt Yun Ruo again. As for his relationship with Yun Ruo and Wenwan, Fu Zonghong thought that if they did not accept him and were not willing to come back in a year or two, he would visit them a few more times. Over time, he would be able to mend their relationship. Forget it. This weekend, Fu Zonghong did not go anywhere and stayed at home. Even though Fu Zonghong did not say anything, his attitude made Fang Wanting feel much more relaxed. Fang Wanting continued to take care of the flowers in the courtyard. She held a pair of scissors and trimmed the branches and leaves. There was a peaceful smile on her face, and her lowered eyebrows relaxed. She looked like she had lived a peaceful life. Fu Zonghong sat at the coffee table in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and sipped on a cup of fragrant tea. He turned his head to look out of the courtyard, and his brows unconsciously relaxed. However, not long after, his phone suddenly rang. Fu Zonghong saw that it was his personal assistant calling. He knew that his personal assistant would not disturb him if it was not an urgent matter when he was resting. Hence, he answered the call. Chairman Fu, something has happened. When Fu Zonghong heard what his personal assistant said, his brows furrowed tightly. He suddenly stood up and asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure?" Fang Wanting looked up and saw that Fu Zonghong had stood up and was not paying attention to her. He seemed to be on the phone. She saw that Fu Zonghong's expression was serious and felt a little worried. Hence, she walked into the room. "Old Fu, what's wrong?" Fu Zonghong looked up at Fang Wanting. At that moment, his gaze was unfamiliar and scrutinizing. Fang Wanting's heart skipped a beat. What happened? She suddenly had an ominous feeling. Did that girl do something stupid behind her back again? Before Fu Zonghong could say anything, the doorbell suddenly rang. The servant went to open the door and saw a few uniformed police officers. "Who are you looking for?" The servant did not dare to stop them and respectfully invited them into the house. Someone immediately went to inform the master. "Mr. Fu, the police. The police are here." Fu Zonghong was surprised for a moment. He seemed to have thought of something and his gaze turned cold. "Let them in." Fang Wanting felt uneasy. She went closer to Fu Zonghong and asked, "Why are the police here?" Fu Zonghong ignored her and walked out. Fang Wanting had no choice but to follow him. "Mr. Fu, madam." The police officers who came were considered polite, but their expressions were serious. Fu Zonghong asked politely, "It's not only you who have come to my humble abode. Is there anything important?" The police officers looked around and asked, "Is Fang Shuirua here?" Fu Zonghong's expression turned cold. He said to the servant beside him, "Ask Shuirua to come down." Fang Wanting frowned and asked uneasily, "Officers, why are you looking for my Shuirua?" An older police officer said seriously, "We suspect that she is related to a murder case, and we need her to assist in the investigation." Fang Wanting's expression changed immediately. "Is there a misunderstanding? My Shuirua is weak. She didn't even dare to step on an ant since she was young. If there is a misunderstanding, we can explain it at the police station. My Shuirua is a public figure. How can she go to the police station? If there is such a misunderstanding and the news gets out, she will be too ashamed to face the public. She is a girl. If there is no suspicion, we will clarify it to the public." The older police officer said seriously. Fang Shuirua had been scrolling through her phone for a few days. She finally saw the news today. Her eyes lit up, and she quickly browsed through it. After reading all the news that she wanted to read, she had a sly smile on her face. Then, she asked her agent to make use of this news to her advantage. No matter how harsh the criticism was now, once the rumors were clarified that she had nothing to do with it, the passers-by would feel guilty and become her fans. Her popularity with the public would quickly return. Just as she was feeling happy, Fang Shuirua heard a knock on the door. She was a little unhappy that she was disturbed, but she quickly changed her expression and went to open the door. "Miss Shuirua, sir is looking for you." "Okay." Fang Shuirua walked out of the door and walked past the people in front of her to go downstairs. The person who knocked on the door was a servant. Fang Shuirua did not notice the strange expression on the servant's face. She was still wondering why Fu Zonghong was looking for her. Fang Shuirua walked down the stairs. "Uncle." She looked up and saw several people in uniform in front of Fu Zonghong. Her expression froze and a hint of panic flashed across her eyes. However, she quickly returned to normal and walked over naturally. "Uncle, are you looking for me?" Then, she turned to look at him. "Who are these people?" Her expression was just right to be confused. Fu Zonghong looked at Fang Shuirua with a look of disappointment. "We are from the Imperial Capital Investigation Unit. We are here to investigate Fu Wenwen's case. You are under arrest." Fang Shuirua's expression changed. Her face was pale and fragile. "Wenwen's case has nothing to do with me. I have been at home all this time." Fang Shuirua interrupted him. "Officer, Shuirua has been at home all this time. We can all be there. How could she have anything to do with this matter?" She can't go with you unless you have concrete evidence. Feng Shui Ruo's expression was ugly. If Feng Shui really went to the police station, she would really be ruined. The young policeman beside her couldn't help but say, she is not at the scene, but she can give instructions online. Communication is so advanced nowadays. They wouldn't arrest people for no reason. Naturally, they had some evidence. The older police officer glanced at him, and the young policeman immediately shut up. One of the policemen took out a handcuff and was about to handcuff Feng Shui Ruo. Feng Shui Ruo reacted violently and looked very scared. Mom! Feng Shui Ruo hurriedly asked the servants to come over and protect Feng Shui Ruo. The servants looked at each other and hesitated. They didn't dare to go forward. They were all ordinary people. How could they dare to go against the police? Feng Shui Ruo looked at Fu Zonghong. Old Fu. Her eyes were full of pleading. Feng Shui Ruo must not be taken away. Once he was taken away, she would really be finished. Fu Zonghong's expression was unreadable. He looked at the chaos in front of him and said sternly, "Stop." He looked at Feng Shui Ruo, who looked helpless. Under her expectant gaze, he said coldly, "Go with the police to assist in the investigation. If you are really innocent, no one will dare to say that you are not guilty." If he was really involved, Feng Shui Ruo looked at Fu Zonghong in disbelief. However, under Fu Zonghong's cold expression, she finally calmed down and slowly let go of her hands. "Mom?" Feng Shui Ruo looked at Feng Shui Ruo with red eyes. Feng Shui Ruo comforted her. "Don't worry. You just have to go for a walk. You will be home soon. Your uncle won't sit by and do nothing." In the end, Feng Shui Ruo was taken away by the police. Feng Shui Ruo followed her out of the house. She saw a group of neighbors watching outside. Many people whispered and looked at them strangely. Feng Shui Ruo ran back into the house as if she was escaping. She covered her face, and her face was pale. She had never been in such a sorry state before. The reputation she had built up for so many years was all gone. Feng Shui Ruo was disappointed. This child, old Fu. Feng Shui Ruo felt uneasy. Shui Ruo must have been wronged. You. Before she could finish her sentence, she saw Fu Zonghong dressed up and ready to go out. Feng Shui Ruo's eyes lit up. "Are you going to ask your connections?" Fu Zonghong said coldly. "I'm going to the hospital to visit Wenwan." "Me too." Before Feng Shui Ruo could finish her sentence, Fu Zonghong said, "You stay at home and wait for the news." Fu Zonghong left without looking back. He had just received a call about Wenwan's injury. If the call had not emphasized that she was only slightly injured, he would not have been so anxious. Fu Zonghong's personal assistant also speculated that the rumors online were ordered by Feng Shui Ruo. He told Fu Zonghong and asked him if he should suppress the news. Regardless of whether it was true or not, it was still a scandal that a stepdaughter wanted to murder her stepfather's daughter's son. Fu Zonghong did not ask anyone to suppress the news. He did not believe it, but he was not in the mood to deal with the messy news online. He only thought that if it had nothing to do with her, he could just clarify it. However, not long after, the police came to arrest Feng Shui Ruo personally. Fu Zonghong still had some influence. If the police did not have evidence, they would not have come to arrest her. At that moment, he was extremely disappointed. That was his biological grandson. Even if he did not raise him by his side, even if he only looked at him occasionally, Fu Zonghong still had a lot of feelings for him. He had already made up his mind to let Wenwan inherit the Fu Corporation. This was also a safeguard for Yun Ruo. But now, he was being told that his grandson was almost killed, and the murderer could be the stepdaughter that he had doted on for 20 years. Fu Zonghong was extremely angry. That was just an innocent child. How could she be so cruel? Fu Zonghong could not help but wonder if Feng Shui Ruo knew about this. If she knew, how could she act so innocent in front of him? Scenes from the past 20 years flashed through his mind like a rewind. He suddenly remembered how Yun Ruo had cried and complained to him about how Feng Wanping and her daughter bullied her, and how she didn't want them to stay at home. After being reprimanded by him many times, she stopped crying and throwing tantrums. Her temper became more and more irritable and weird. In the end, she looked at him with a sharp gaze. Fu Zonghong felt a throbbing pain in his head. He suddenly did not understand why he had treated his only biological daughter like this. Before he remarried, he only wanted to give his child a complete family to make up for the lack of maternal love. For this reason, he had chosen a gentle divorcee from an ordinary family. In order to give his everything to Yun Ruo in the future, he had even gone for a vasectomy so that he would not have any children. Why did things turn out this way? Sir? Sir, what's wrong? Fu Zonghong held his head. After a while, his eyes regained clarity. He looked up and saw the driver looking at him with concern and anxiety. Sir, do you have a headache? Fu Zonghong's expression softened. I'm fine. Have we arrived? He looked out of the window. The car had already stopped in front of a hospital. We're here. Fu Zonghong alighted from the car and went straight into the hospital. It was past 7:00 in the evening and the sky had just darkened. The bright lights in the hospital lit up the entire hospital as though it was daytime. The main hall of the hospital was not noisy. There were not many people walking in and out, but it was not deserted either. Fu Zonghong went straight to the front desk. He showed his identity and requested to see Fu Wanwen. The lady at the front desk made a call to confirm and said apologetically, I'm sorry, the patient does not wish to see you. See, you saw that Fu Yun Ruo had a strange expression on her face after she hung up on the hospital. She immediately asked, Chairman Fu is coming? Fu Yun Ruo responded, You agree? Fu Yun Ruo shook her head. No. She was now angry at Fu Zonghong and did not want to see him. Moreover, she had just heard that Feng Shui Ruo had been arrested and Fu Zonghong was here. Who knew what he was here for? Siyu did not ask any more questions. Fu Yun Ruo looked at Wenwan. The little girl was sitting on the bed. Her black eyes were full of energy. Her heart instantly melted. Chapter 110. The nurse at the front desk put the phone back and said apologetically, I'm sorry, sir. The patient is not accepting visitors. Fu Zonghong did not expect to be rejected. He was a little upset, but he was not willing to give up. Please help me ask again. I won't leave until I see her. The lady at the front desk hesitated. In the end, she called again. Miss Fu, Mr. Fu wants to visit the patient. Do you think? It's not convenient for us here. Please ask him to go back. Then the call turned into a beeping sound. The lady at the front desk was helpless. Mr. Fu, what do you think? Fu Zonghong frowned and asked the lady at the front desk. How's Wenwen's injury? I'm sorry. We don't have the right to disclose the patient's privacy. Fu Zonghong's annual checkup was at this hospital. He knew the hospital's rules very well. After he could not get anything out of the lady, he tried to call Fu Yun, but it did not go through. In the end, he said with a pale face, I'm not feeling well. Help me get admitted to the hospital. The lady at the front desk was speechless. After the doctor at the hospital took a look at Fu Zonghong, they still helped him get admitted to the hospital. His body was not in good condition, and he needed to be hospitalized for a checkup. Fu Zonghong had been feeling weak recently. His body had not been in good condition for the past few years. He had various problems, but he could control them well by having regular checkups. However, his body could not be too emotional. Today's incident had a huge impact on him. He had suppressed the anger in his heart and could not vent it out. But the most important thing now was to see Wenwan. His body was secondary. Since the internal department could not find out anything, Fu Zonghong called his special assistant and asked him to try his best to find out more information. Then, he went out to try his luck. Fu Yun did not know that Fu Zonghong was hospitalized because he wanted to see Wenwan. She accompanied Wenwan for a while. On the other hand, Siyu needed to recuperate for the next few days. In order to prevent Siyu from feeling lonely and bored, Fu Yun would always bring Wenwan along. Fu Yun Ruo could not stay idle at night. After she turned on her phone again, it vibrated non-stop. Messages appeared one after another, and there were dozens of missed calls. Many of them sent WeChat messages to inquire after failing to get through. Fu Yun also saw more than 10 missed calls from Aunt May and the others. Fu Yun immediately made a video call. In order not to worry them, she even asked Wenwan to come over and watch the video together. As soon as she called, the call was immediately connected. Aunt May and Uncle May's anxious faces were displayed on the screen. Ruorua, what happened? The internet said that when Wan was injured? How is it now? Fu Yunrua quickly comforted them. Aunt May, Uncle May, don't worry. When Wan is fine. If you don't believe me, take a look. Fu Yunrua pointed the camera at Wenwan. Wenwan looked at the camera and obediently called out, Grandpa May, Grandma May. Uncle May and Aunt May leaned closer, trying their best to see Wenwan more clearly. Fu Yunrua understood their intentions. She pulled the camera a little further away and let Wenwan's entire body enter the camera. Wenwan even slowly turned around twice before approaching. She said cutely, Grandpa May, Grandma May, I'm fine. Don't worry, Uncle May and Aunt May's sharp eyes did not see any injuries. Their tense nerves immediately relaxed. She stroked her chest and said, God bless, God bless. Fortunately, she's fine. The internet said that Wenwan fell from more than 10 floors and is in critical condition. She's not out of danger yet. Fu Yunru really did not know that the rumors on the internet were so exaggerated. She explained, the internet is exaggerating. Wenwan fell from a high place, but it wasn't very high. Moreover, she was caught by someone, so it's not a big deal. Is it a you? Where is he? Is he okay? After Uncle May and Aunt May knew that Wenwan was also filming television dramas, they learned from young people to surf the internet and chase after celebrities, so they knew what the internet said. Fu Yunrua turned to look at Siyu. He looked very serious now and did not know if she should show it to Uncle May and Aunt May. Aunt May noticed Fu Yunrua's gaze and quickly asked, Is it you there too? Let me and the old man take a look. They would not be at ease if they did not take a look. Siyu smiled at Fu Yunrua and said, Let me say hello to Aunt May and the others. Fu Yunrua then brought the phone in front of him. Siyu smiled and greeted them. After the two sides finished exchanging pleasantries, Uncle May and Aunt May were still worried and decided to make a trip to the capital. Fu Yunrua felt that it was too tiring for them to come all the way here. However, she had not seen them for a long time and wanted to see them too. In the end, she welcomed them very much. After hanging up the phone, Fu Yunrua started to reply to the messages one by one. Her hands were tired from replying, but these were all from her relatives and friends, so she replied very seriously. Wenwan leaned against Fu Yunrua and looked at the screen. Fu Yunrua gently talked about the concern for Wenwan on her WeChat moments. In the end, Fu Yunrua really could not reply to everyone. She posted on her WeChat moments to thank everyone for their concern and did not reply to them one by one. Then, she went to her own social media account to post that she was safe. Wenwan looked at the phone and said softly, Mom, I want to see the phone. Fu Yunrua was now obedient to Wenwan and gave her the phone. However, she did not want her to look at the news on the platform. She turned on a variety show for Wenwan. Let's watch My Parents and Me. Many children like to watch it. This variety show was organized by director Peng. It was about the interaction between cute children and their parents. It was the most popular variety show at the moment. Wenwan pouted and looked at Fu Yunrua with teary eyes. Fu Yunrua thought for a moment. If you don't want to watch this variety show, how about watching cartoons? Wenwan. Forget it. Cartoons were too childish. He would watch variety shows. Wenwan watched the video quietly. Siyu frowned and said to Fu Yunrua, Help me call a male nurse. Fu Yunrua was stunned. She suddenly thought of something and her face turned red. Then, she called someone. Not long after, a tall male nurse walked over. She and the male nurse carefully helped Siyu up and moved him to the bathroom. Fu Yunrua did not follow them in. She felt very guilty and apologetic. Siyu was such a proud person. Now, for her, their child, he had become a person who could not move and needed help with the most basic life skills. It must be a blow to his self-esteem, right? However, he didn't reveal anything at all. Wenwan held his phone in his hand. Seeing that the adults were not paying attention to him, he began to search for Feng Shuirua. He decided to take revenge for himself. He did not want to wait for more than 10 years until he had the ability to act independently. It was just that he did not have the ability now. However, it did not matter. Money made the world go round. He could find a private investigator. Unfortunately, it was not 20 years later. When he was at odds with the Fong Corporation and the Chang family, he had collected a lot of evidence of them evading taxes and doing bad things. However, those were all in the recent 10 years. He did not find anything that was older than that. However, it did not matter. Since they had done those illegal things in the past, they would definitely do it now. He could find a private investigator. When one saw the headlines on the internet, the headlines were very eye-catching. Feng Shui Ruo has been arrested. There were several hot searches. The second was a one-sided comment asking Feng Shui Ruo to get out of the entertainment industry. When one clicked on it and was stunned for a moment, when the adults were discussing the mastermind behind the scenes, when one happened to be asleep and did not hear it. Therefore, he did not know that the mastermind had been found. He was preparing to take revenge for himself when he realized that Feng Shui had already been arrested. Her reputation was also very bad. He had not done anything yet, however. Feng Shui Ruo was actually arrested. When one was really shocked, one of the legends of the entertainment industry in the future was actually going to jail. This was worth celebrating. When one was so happy that he wanted to throw his head back and laugh. Now, Feng Shui would not be able to achieve what she had in the previous life. Let's see how she could harm him. Other than Feng Shui Ruo, there was also the capital behind her. The Fong Corporation. Yes, its predecessor was the Fu Corporation. As long as one did not let the mother and daughter inherit the Fu Corporation, this backing would be gone. When one thought that since he and his mother were still around, he would not go past them and give the Fu Corporation to the Fong Corporation and their daughter, right? If he wanted to protect the person who harmed them, then the Fu Corporation would also be on his list of targets. Therefore, his main target now was the Chang family. When one confirmed his target and prepared to find a private detective to look for evidence. With his small body, he could not go out to look for people, and other people would not take him seriously. When one could only use electronic devices to look for evidence online. There was no detective agency that he had any impression of. When one was not familiar with it, so he could only look carefully and slowly. Not long after, Siyu walked out. His legs were fine, so he could walk over slowly without moving his upper body. Fu Yun Ruo went up to Bang Siyue and lay down. There was nothing else, so the male nurse quickly left. Fu Yun Ruo said, "Why don't we ask Brother Yuan if he has any caregivers?" Fu Yun Ruo felt that it would be very inconvenient if there were no caregivers on standby at all times. Yuan Xian is busy now. Don't bother him with this small matter. The hospital is already thinking of a solution. I can bear with it for a few days. Siyu Ruo looked at Fu Yun Ruo. Or do you think I'm a burden? His voice was low, and his expression was a little weak. Fu Yun Ruo had never seen Siyu like this before. She quickly said, "No, why would I dislike you?" Her heart ached for him. "Don't worry, I will take good care of you." Siyu Ruo smiled confidently. "Okay." Fu Yun Ruo's cheeks unconsciously heated up when Siyu Ruo looked at her with eyes full of trust. She hurriedly looked away and turned to see when engrossed in playing with his phone. He looked like a child addicted to the internet. Fu Yun Ruo went over. "Okay, time's up. You can't play anymore today. Get ready to rest." When Ruo closed the webpage and looked at the time on his phone, he had played for less than half an hour. Fu Yun Ruo did not want him to act coquettishly. She took the phone and carried Ruo. "I'll bring Wen out to sleep." Wen said softly, "It's still early, Mommy. I don't want to sleep." Fu Yun Ruo said, "It's not early anymore, baby." Fu Yun Ruo let Wen sit on the bed. She got some hot water and wiped his body. She hugged and coaxed him. Wen, who did not want to sleep, fell asleep very quickly. Fu Yun Ruo looked at Wen. She wanted to wait for Wen to fall asleep before going to see if Siyu needed any help. However, she also coaxed herself to sleep. Fu Yun Ruo had been tense for the entire day. Once she relaxed, her body could not take it anymore and she fainted. At this moment, it was still very lively outside. Chapter 111. Feng Shui didn't know what went wrong. She didn't reveal any flaws, so no one would be able to trace it back to her. However, she was arrested and brought here, and the police even said that they had evidence. She didn't bribe anyone to commit the crime, nor did she order anyone to commit the crime. She had nothing to do with this, so how could there be evidence? She couldn't figure out what went wrong. Feng Shui couldn't imagine how the outside world would view her. Only by proving that she was innocent could she clear her name and make a beautiful comeback. She had expected to be slandered after the incident on set, but she never thought that she would be arrested. Feng Shui started to panic when she realized that everything was out of her control. No, she would be fine. She was just implicated. Everything had nothing to do with her. As long as she stayed calm and insisted that she didn't know anything, no one would be able to do anything to her. Feng Shui was detained in a single room in the detention center. The room was eerily quiet. Feng Shui looked around. There were 4 bunk beds, simple and crude. She was the only one standing in the middle of the room. She couldn't bear to stay there any longer. Feng Shui didn't expect her uncle to be so heartless. He knew that it would have a negative impact on her, but he didn't do anything and just let someone take her away. She had tried so hard to please him for so many years, thinking that he would return the favor. He had treated her better than Fu Yun for so many years, but when it came down to it, he still chose Fu Yun. Feng Shui's eyes darkened. Her mother would definitely come and save her. She definitely would. There was a commotion outside the metal door. Her eyes lit up, and she couldn't wait to go over. Feng Shui, come with me, the police officer said sternly as he opened the door. Feng Shui's face lit up. She knew it. She knew that her mother would definitely come and save her. Feng Shui followed the police officer out and came to her room. However, she didn't see Feng Shui, but Chang Zhuyu. Brother Chang. Feng Shui saw Chang Zhuyu. Tears welled up in her eyes and she looked aggrieved. Brother Chang, you're finally here. Chang Zhuyu's heart ached as he hugged her. I'm late. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you. Chang Zhuyu had only found out about this when his assistant told him about it. He had asked his assistant to keep an eye on Feng Shui's situation online. Recently, he had been too busy to visit Feng Shui Ruo, but that didn't mean that he didn't care about her. Thinking about how much Shui'er had suffered when he couldn't see her, Chang Zhuyu instructed his assistant not to slack off and pay attention to Shui'er's situation. The Chang family had just recovered, and Chang Zhuyu was thinking of ways to find an investment film crew for Shui'er. They were still looking for a good production crew. As for the endorsement deal, Chang Zhuyu did not manage to get a good endorsement deal. Instead, he set his sights on his own company's products. However, as soon as he leaked the news, he was boycotted by the management and shareholders. They did not want a celebrity with a bad reputation to endorse his company. Wasn't this adding insult to injury? They had just suffered a huge blow and were slowly recovering. At this time, they should look for celebrities with positive energy and good influence. Because of this, Chang Zhuyu lost his temper. His prestige had dropped, and his words were no longer as authoritative as before. He had to take into account the opinions of the other shareholders. He felt that these people were all mercenaries. When it was beneficial to them, they would be one way, and now they were another. Chang Zhuyu even promised that he would get Shui'er a good endorsement deal and a good script, but in the end, he did not get any of them. Just as he was about to smash the documents in anger, his assistant walked in with a serious expression. President Chang, bad news? What's the matter? Chang Zhuyu asked unhappily. Something happened to Miss Fong. The assistant hurriedly reported the matter to Chang Zhuyu. Chang Zhuyu's expression immediately turned cold. Then, he received a call from Feng Shui Ruo's manager. Chang Zhuyu said coldly, Shui'er must have been framed. How could he sit still? He immediately went out to fetch Shui'er. She must be very scared. With this thought in mind, Chang Zhuyu went to the detention center and saw the person he missed dearly. Sure enough, in just half a day, Shui'er looked so haggard and scared. Seeing him was like seeing a hero who would save her from disaster. Chang Zhuyu comforted her for a while before he said coldly to the police officers, I'll take her away. I'll wait for you to give me an explanation. The police officers were speechless. The police officers stopped them. Mr. Chang, You can't take the suspect away. Do you have to go against the Chang family? The police officers were speechless. Was this young master of the Chang family crazy? Did he know where he was? Even the Chang family has to abide by the law. You've arrested the wrong person. Shuer would not do such a thing. It's all a misunderstanding. The senior police officer said calmly, "We arrested her because we have evidence and an arrest warrant. We won't accuse her for no reason." Chang Zhuyo's expression was extremely ugly. He looked at them coldly and then made a call. The Chang family and the government were naturally related. In the imperial city, who would not give the Chang family face? His call went through, but the other party was in a difficult position and said that they couldn't do anything about it. The impact of this matter was too great. Moreover, the higher-ups had instructed them to pay attention to it. They didn't dare to interfere. If they weren't careful, they might even get into trouble. At this time, it was too late to protect oneself. The other party told the Chang family not to contact him for the time being and hung up. Chang Zhuyu didn't expect that the other party wouldn't even give the Chang family face. His expression was extremely ugly. He couldn't figure out who was so powerful that they didn't even give the Chang family face. Chang Zhuyu really couldn't take Feng Shui away. He wanted to bail her out, but it didn't work. He couldn't look into Feng Shui's expectant eyes and could only say bitterly, "Shuer, don't worry. I'll definitely get you out tomorrow." Brother Chang. Feng Shui's tears really came out. She didn't expect that even Chang Zhuyu couldn't bail her out. Could she still get out? In the end, Feng Shui's teary eyes left with a horrified expression. Chang Zhuyu said hatefully, "Where is Fu Yunruo?" Other than Fu Yunruo, he couldn't think of anyone else who would target Shuer like this. His Shuer was so gentle and kind. How could she do something to hurt others? It must be her. She wanted to take the opportunity to frame Shuer. He wouldn't let her succeed. The assistant used his connections and finally found out the name of the hospital. "We'll go there now." Yes. The assistant didn't dare to say anything else and hurriedly drove to the hospital. The hospital was very far away from them. It was almost in the north and south. If the traffic was smooth, it would take more than an hour to get there. Their luck wasn't very good. Not long after, it was rush hour. They were stuck in traffic for half a day and stopped several times. When they finally arrived at the hospital, it was already 9 o'clock. Chang Zhuyu walked into the hospital with a cold aura and asked to see someone. The receptionist said apologetically, "I'm sorry, sir. It's past visiting hours." They politely but firmly asked him to leave. Chang Zhuyo's upbringing made it impossible for him to make a scene in the hospital. In the end, he could only leave and stay in a hotel near the hospital. It would be easier to find someone the next day. Fu Yunruo naturally didn't know that so many people were looking for her outside. She slept with Wenwan, but she didn't sleep well. She woke up from time to time and looked at Wenwan in her arms. She used her fingers to check if she was breathing and gently touched her small chest. She only went back to sleep after making sure that she was fine. However, she kept having nightmares. One moment, she dreamed that she and Siyu didn't catch Wenwan. The small person fell to the ground and didn't move. The ground was covered in blood. The next moment, she dreamed that Siyu and Wenwan were lying on the ground and didn't move. Every time she woke up, her heart would palpitate. The last time Fu Yunruo woke up, the sky was already slightly bright. She looked at the time and saw that it was already 6 o'clock in the morning. Fu Yunruo was no longer sleepy. She lay quietly for a while and seemed to hear some movement in the room. Fu Yunruo thought that Siyu couldn't move freely and was worried. She got up quietly and went out. She heard some movement in the room and knocked on the door. "Mr. Yu, are you awake?" She paused. "I'm coming in." "Yes." Fu Yunruo opened the door and entered. The bedside lamp in Siyu's room was always on. The light was dim, but she could see the furnishings in the room clearly. Siyu had already sat up and his feet were on the ground. He then looked over. Fu Yunruo walked over and asked with concern, "Why are you up so early?" Siyu said, "I want to go to the washroom." Fu Yunruo supported him. "Let me help you over." Siyu raised his eyebrows and didn't refuse. He walked into the washroom with Fu Yunruo's help. Fu Yun Ruo supported him to the toilet and was about to go out when she was stopped by Siyu. Ruo. Yes? Fu Yun Ruo turned around. Siyu Ruo said, my hand can't move. Fu Yun Ruo reacted and her face turned red. She stuttered, I'd better get someone to come over. Without waiting for his response, Fu Yun Ruo ran out and quickly called for someone on the internal line. Siyu Ruo looked at her fleeing figure and couldn't help but chuckle with a happy expression. Xiao Ming's words made sense. After Fu Yun Ruo called for someone, she pressed her burning cheeks and was embarrassed to go in again. The male nurse came very quickly and arrived in less than 2 minutes. Fu Yun Ruo was curious about how he came so quickly, but when she saw the male nurse's expression, it was obvious that he was on the night shift, so she didn't ask much. The male nurse came out not long after he went in and left. Fu Yun Ruo tried her best to pretend that the embarrassing incident in the morning didn't happen. She hugged Wen and continued to sleep. When it was slightly past 7 o'clock, Fu Yun Ruo woke up. She washed up and went to the canteen to get breakfast. When Ruo woke up, he didn't see Fu Yun Ruo. He rubbed his eyes and looked around in confusion. He called out, Mummy, softly, but there was no response. He lay on the side of the bed and slid down. He put on his small shoes and went to look for Siyu. Siyu Ruo had already woken up, but he was half lying down and resting with his eyes closed. When he heard movement at the door, Siyu Ruo opened his eyes and saw Wen Ruo poking his head out. He smiled. Wen, come here. Wen Ruo looked at Siyu and walked over with his short legs. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.